Chapter 2263. Only then did everyone realize that the girl in front of them was not a princess. They could not help but secretly rejoice. If a maid was so slender and beautiful, how beautiful would a real princess be? However, they immediately thought of the question raised by the princess and thought that the test should have begun. They frowned and thought hard. Although Xixia was not as good as Mongolia, Jin Kingdom, and Southern Song Dynasty, it was also a big country. As a princess, what kind of things had she not seen? It must be an extraordinary thing that could make the princess feel so magical. Song Qingshu almost laughed out loud. He thought that these women were really the same for thousands of years. Even their way of thinking was the same. Wasn't this question deliberately digging a pit for everyone to jump into? At this time, the maid served tea and cakes to the people in the room one by one. The tea was good, and the cakes were also exquisite. However, no one was in a mood to drink tea at this time. They were all thinking about the princess question. I think it's a beautiful bird. No, it should be a phoenix. Only a phoenix matches the princess. At this time, Siluo rushed to say. In his view, the imperial palace was heavily guarded, and the princess's bedroom was one of the most important places in the palace. It was impossible for outsiders to enter. Therefore, the only thing that could get close to the princess's bedroom was a bird. It must be an extraordinary bird that could surprise the princess, who was used to seeing rare birds and beasts. He was very satisfied with his answer, and even more satisfied that he said it one step ahead. As the saying goes, one step ahead, one step at a time. Those who answered later could only copy others' words. Thinking that he and Li Yuanhao had been fighting each other for more than 10 years, and now he had a good chance to marry the princess of Xixia, he secretly felt happy. At that time, he must vent his anger against Li Yuanhao on the princess. When the people around heard his answer, they were very annoyed. They thought that why they didn't think of it and let him take the lead. I think it's a fish. It should be a koi that suddenly appeared in the pond, indicating that the princess will find a good son-in-law this time. Zai Yuci of Dongying immediately followed suit and said quickly. Seeing that he had said what he wanted to say first, the others did not dare to hesitate and shouted out similar answers. It could be said that they had said all the birds and beasts. After asking around, the maid looked at Nalan Rongrua and said, I have long heard of Child Nalan's talent. I wonder what Child Nalan thinks. Nalan Rongrua excelled in both the pen and the sword. He was also very handsome. There were many unmarried women from various countries who were his fans. Nalan Rongrua bowed and replied modestly, I don't dare to claim to be a brilliant opinion. I think Princess may have seen the clouds in the sky this morning, and it evoked the matter of choosing a son-in-law. When everyone heard this, they all nodded their heads. As expected of a gifted scholar, he had to be a little more ambitious. I think what the princess saw was the wind. Flowers bloom and wilt in front of the courtyard, not the wind or the trees, but the heart. Suju was inspired by him and thought of a Buddhist story. Quite a number of people felt that the little monk's speech was brilliant, but there were even more people who were dissatisfied. Hence, they pointed out that he was using a Buddhist gatha to fool people, and pointed out that he was actually a monk in order to lower his image in the princess's heart. If it had been before, the people of Shaolin Temple would probably have rejected it. However, Su Liuwu had already made a deal with them, and they had already achieved their goal for this trip. Thus, they did not care much about the position of emperor's son-in-law. Everyone, please don't make a ruckus. The maidservant softly comforted the crowd. She then asked Su Liuwu, what is the prince's answer? Su Liuwu sat in his wheelchair and proudly replied, Princess is the descendant of an ambitious and ruthless hero. As the saying goes, a tiger's daughter comes from a family of generals. How could she care about some birds, beasts, winds, and clouds? In this prince's opinion, Princess should be surprised to see the imperial chi of our Mongolian empire flourishing day by day. When the time comes, we will join forces, and this prince will take Princess to see all the rivers and mountains in the world. His words made everyone who had previously replied look down on him. However, everyone was afraid of the might of the Mongolian empire and did not dare to say anything. Wanyan Zhongjia did not care about that. Hearing this, he sneered and said, Imperial Chi? You Mongolians believe in the everlasting heaven and boast that you are the descendants of a wolf and a white deer. Even if you have any chi, it is wolf chi. What imperial chi? You really know how to put gold on your face. Su Yewu was furious. When the Mongolian Empire invades the south, the first country we will destroy will be the Jin Kingdom. Who doesn't know how to boast? In these past few years, I have not seen you gain any advantage. Wanya and Zhongjie did not back down and directly retorted. Because the two of them began to quarrel, the hall quickly became a mess. At this time, Shui Baochai saw that Song Qing-shu was still leisurely drinking tea and eating snacks. She couldn't help but feel a little anxious. How can you still be in the mood to eat here? Everyone has already answered, but you have not said anything. The snacks are delicious, and the tea is also very good. Compared to the Longjing tea in Jiangnan, the tea here has a different flavor. Do you want to try it? Song Qing-shu said as he handed over the cup. Seeing that he had drunk from the cup, Shui Baochai's face turned red. Why are you still making trouble at a time like this? Hurry up and tell that maid your answer. Song Qing-shu looked at her strangely and said, Sister Bao, do you really want me to marry the princess? Shui Baochai was stunned. Yes, he had already won the martial arts competition. The better his answer was, the more likely he would be chosen as the emperor's son-in-law. Why did she have to rush him? However, he immediately reacted. How could the princess of Xixia like Bao Yu? If she hadn't grown up with him, perhaps she would also. The more she thought about it, the redder her face became. Song Qing-shu saw that she became shy as she spoke. He thought that these women's thoughts were really hard to understand. Seeing that the room was becoming more and more chaotic, the people of Class 1 Hall hurriedly came out to maintain order. Only then did the maid walk in front of Song Qing-shu and ask, Young master, what's your answer? Song Qing-shu swallowed the last snack and drank a mouthful of tea to moisten his throat before he said, I don't know what's wrong with the princess's body. I know a little about the art of yellow medicine, and this time I have brought a lot of expensive medicine with me. I can treat the princess. Si Baoyuo sneered and said, What are you talking about? She is asking you what the princess saw. The others also criticized him. Only a few meticulous people suddenly realized that everyone seemed to have overlooked a piece of information. There was a trace of smile on the maid's face. Thank you for your concern, young master. The princess has just caught a cold. She will be fine after drinking some red bean porridge. By the way, young master, what's your answer? Song Qing-shu smiled slightly and said, I think the princess must have seen wrongly. She thought that I came early, so she was pleasantly surprised. In fact, it didn't matter what the latter part of the question was. The key to the answer was the first half of the sentence about drinking medicine. However, the people of this era had never seen such a trick and were all fooled. Bah, shameless! Who do you think you are? The others were originally not convinced that he was a lucky champion. Now that they heard him speak so arrogantly, they immediately cursed him. They thought that it was really in line with his previous shameless character. Who was the princess? They didn't know where he got the confidence that the princess would always think of him. Even Shui Baochai blushed. She thought that Bao Yu was too hateful. However, it was good that he answered like this. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if the princess took him as the princess's son-in-law. Chapter 2264. The maid replied, Her Royal Highness invites all of you to come to the study room to appreciate the calligraphy and painting. Si Siluo angrily said, This princess is really arrogant. First she invited us to a banquet, then she invited us to drink tea, and now she wants to appreciate some calligraphy and painting. She won't come out to meet us. Does she look down on the heroes of the world? Si Siluo and the Xixia had been fighting for many years. He knew that the Xixia would not choose him as their son-in-law, so he was not afraid of offending the princess. As soon as he started, many discontented childs began to clamor. Please don't misunderstand. Our princess has no intention of neglecting you. The maid was so anxious that she was about to cry, but no matter how she explained, no one believed her. Duan Yu couldn't bear to see a little girl like her blushing face. He stepped forward and said, "Prince, you are wrong. Her Royal Highness first invited us to a banquet. Then she invited us to drink tea, and now she wants to appreciate the calligraphy and painting. Obviously, she wants to test our character and literary talent. Maybe she has been recording our words and actions since just now. This way, she can show you your true self. Don't let the princess down." Hearing his analysis, everyone felt that it was reasonable. They had been anxious about why the written test hadn't started yet. But the princess didn't tell them how the written test would be conducted. Maybe the test had already started when they entered the hall. Thinking of this, the group of people regretted that they didn't think of it earlier. They hurriedly tidied up their clothes, corrected their appearance, and didn't dare to make a fuss like before. Seeing that no one responded, Ceciluo could only snort resentfully. Following that, everyone obediently followed behind the maidservant. Very quickly, they walked through a long corridor. They were all secretly amazed. From the outside, this blue phoenix pavilion doesn't look very grand. Who would have thought that there's such a big place inside? After walking through a corridor that was several tens of feet long, they arrived at two large stone doors. The maid took out a small piece of metal and knocked on the stone door a few times. The stone door creaked open. These people saw that the stone door was more than a foot thick and unusually strong. They whispered to themselves, "After we go in and close the stone door, won't we be caught in one fell swoop?" How do you know that the Xixia country didn't use the name of the princess to find a husband to attract the heroes of the world to throw themselves into the trap? Su Lai snorted and took the lead to have his subordinates push the wheelchair in. The powerful Mongolian cavalry was his backing, and he did not believe that the Western Xia would dare to harm him. Someone hit the head. Everyone thought that since they were already here, they might as well take things as they came. Under these circumstances, no one was willing to show weakness, so they turned back. After everyone entered the door, the stone door slowly closed. Behind the door was another long passageway with oil lamps burning on the stone walls on both sides. After walking through the passageway, there was another stone door. After passing through the stone door, there was another passageway, and they passed through 3 large stone doors in a row. At that moment, even Su Liwu, who was originally the most confident among them, was a little surprised and bewildered. It was truly impossible for him to call for help in this place. With the guards he brought in, how could they possibly be a match for the many elites from Western Xia's Class 1 Hall? Only Song Qing-shu was calm and composed and swaggered to the front. When the people who were originally hesitant saw that Jia Biyu, whom they had always looked down on, was so bold, they did not dare to lose face and could only bite the bullet and follow. After turning a few more corners, they suddenly heard the sound of water gurgling and arrived at the side of a deep stream. To suddenly see such a deep stream in the Forbidden Palace was really unimaginable. Everyone looked at each other, and some of the hot-tempered ones were almost about to explode. The palace maid said, "If you want to go to the inner study, you must pass through this orchid stream. Everyone, please." As she said this, she swayed her delicate body and stepped into the deep stream. There were 4 bright torches beside the stream, and everyone could see that when she stepped down, she fell into the stream, and they could not help but cry out in surprise. Who knew that the palace maid's figure was graceful, and she gracefully walked over the stream in the air. Everyone was surprised, and they all thought that there must be some kind of iron chain on the stream to step on, otherwise there was no reason to walk in the air. When they took a closer look, they saw a steel wire from one side to the other, lying across the stream. But the steel wire was so thin, and it was painted black, and in the dark night, it was really difficult to see where the light from the torches could not reach. They saw that the stream was quite deep, and if they slipped and fell, even if their lives were not in danger, they would be very embarrassed. Xue Baochai could not help but pull Song Qingshu's sleeve and said, "Baoyu, there is such a place in the Xixiao Imperial Palace. It is really strange, and we must be careful of fraud." In fact, Song Qingshu had never been here before. He mostly went to Li Qinglu's boudoir, and the layout of this place looked more like the forbidden area of Jianghu, which was really incompatible with the temperament of the Imperial Palace. But when he thought of Li Qiushui's existence, he felt relieved. The layout of this place was somewhat similar to that of the Misty Peak's Vulture Palace. Take the Iron Chain in the Deep Stream, for example. The Vulture Palace also had such a checkpoint, but there was a cliff at the bottom, and the distance between the two sides was much wider than the one in front of him. This place must have been built by Li Qiushui to reminisce about the days when he was in the Xiaoyao sect. 52 Literature. Knowing that there was a steel wire below, everyone calmed down a little. To be able to pass the wushu selection, except for the fake Jia Baoyu, these people's martial arts were not weak. Immediately, someone took the lead to use the lightness skill and stepped on the steel wire to the other side. Perhaps they remembered what Duan Yu had said just now. When they used the lightness skill, they showed off their lightness skill, hoping that the secret recording personnel would notice their valiant and heroic posture and say it to the princess. Su Lai was in a wheelchair, and it was difficult for him to move, but two subordinates, each carrying one end of him, carried him over like a palanquin. Song Qingshu frowned slightly. That night, he had almost annihilated all the top experts of the Mongolian diplomatic mission, who knew that these seemingly ordinary guards had such a foundation in martial arts, and the Mongolian strength could be seen clearly. "Bao, you hold my hand." At this time, Shue Baochai suddenly said to him in a low voice, and then a tender and soft little hand took his. Song Qingshu sighed inwardly. This Shue Baochai was really good to Jia Baoyu, giving him all kinds of advice and caring. If she found out that the childhood sweetheart she liked was long gone, who knew how sad she would be? While he was in a daze, Shue Baochai had already flown over, holding his hand. Seeing the two of them holding hands, Yu Chai Xiuxing sneered. "Trash who only knows how to rely on women. Who are you calling trash?" "You are trash." Song Qingshu laughed. "Indeed, you are calling me trash." The surrounding people also laughed loudly. Although they did not like Jia Baoyu, they had always looked down on Woka people. Yu Chai Xiuxing said angrily, "What's the use of hiding behind a woman's back? Come out and fight me if you have the ability. If you have the ability, you should also find a woman to rely on. But looking at your appearance and height, I'm afraid that you won't be able to find an excellent woman." Song Qingshu shrugged. "I'm different. I'm naturally charming, and girls like me. Maybe the Xixia princess will fall in love with me at first sight." Shue Baochai was a little angry when she heard him say that she liked him, but she couldn't help but smile when she heard his confidence. Yu Chai Xiuxing sneered again and again. "These words will inevitably be passed to the princess, and she will recognize your lecherous nature." Song Qingshu was too lazy to pay attention to him and continued to walk inside. At this time, the palace maid pressed a mechanism next to a rock, and a whooshing sound was heard. Then, the steel wire shrank into the grass and disappeared without a trace. This made everyone tremble with fear. They all thought that this deep ravine was very wide, and it was difficult to fly over. Could it be that the Xixia country was up to no good? Otherwise, why would there be such a mechanism in the princess study room? Everyone was secretly on guard, and no one had the mind to care about the matter of Jia Baoyu. Some people secretly regretted. How could I be so stupid to not bring any weapons or concealed weapons when I entered the palace? The palace maid said, "Everyone, please come here." Everyone followed her through a large pine forest and arrived in front of a cave door. The palace maid knocked a few times, and the cave door opened. The palace maid said, "Please," and took the lead to go inside. Now, even Su Liuwu was somewhat hesitant to go forward. Only Song Qingshu calmly walked inside. Suddenly, a bright light appeared in front of his eyes, and he found himself in the depths of a large hall. This hall was more than 3 times bigger than the hall of concentrated fragrance, where they had been drinking tea. It was obviously a natural cave in the mountain peak, and it had been artificially decorated. The walls of the hall were polished very smooth, and there were paintings and calligraphy hanging everywhere. Ordinary caves would have moisture and water droplets, but this place was unusually dry. The paintings and calligraphy hung on the walls, and there was no sign of moisture. At the side of the hall was a large red sandalwood desk, on which were placed the 4 treasures of the study, stone tablets, and antiques. There are also a few bookshelves, 3 or 4 stone stools, and a stone table. The palace maid said, "This is Her Highness the Princess' study room. Please feel free to admire the paintings and calligraphy." Everyone saw that the appearance and furnishings of this hall were very special. It was empty, and there was not the slightest smell of cosmetics. It was unexpectedly the princess' study room, and they were all very surprised. Today, Song Qing-shu saw another side of Li Qinglu, and remembered that she was also a dignified princess of a country. Most likely she was putting on such an awe-inspiring display for him to see, so that he could not look down on her. But looking at the way she was acting, most likely Li Qiushui had instigated it. Hearing the palace maid's words, everyone's heart jumped, and thought that was really as Duan Yu said. Admiring paintings and calligraphy was not a lie, but taking the opportunity to examine everyone's literary talent was the real thing. So a group of people ran to the wall and appraised the paintings and calligraphy masters. But most of them were martial artists, and only Nailan Rongra, Duan Yu, and a few others knew how to really appraise. The rest were just pretending to know. Chapter 2265. Only then did everyone come back to their senses from the calligraphy and paintings on the wall. They hurriedly looked back and found a beautiful figure sitting at the head of the table. They couldn't see her face clearly because of the heavy curtains, but it was enough to see her graceful figure. She was definitely a top beauty. "Greetings, princess." A group of people hurriedly went over to curry favor. The princess slowly opened her mouth and said, "Everyone has come from afar. I am very grateful for your hospitality. My humble country's hospitality is not satisfactory. Please forgive me. I would like to give each of you a piece of calligraphy and painting that I usually admire as a token of appreciation. These are all authentic works of famous artists. Please accept them. When you leave, please pick them from the wall." The princess's voice is so beautiful. I'm dying. Some people were whispering to each other. Originally, many people didn't have much hope when they came in, but when they saw the princess's graceful figure with their own eyes, and her voice was so pleasing to the ears, most of their bones immediately softened. No matter how slim the hope was, they all wanted to try their best. If they could really bring the beauty home, wouldn't that be great? The princess then repeated what she just said. "May I ask who is young Master Jia of the great song?" "I am." Shui Baochai pushed. Song Qing-shu finally stood up and instantly became the target of public criticism. Even if the others looked down on him, they had to admit that he was indeed a good-looking man. In addition, he had a unique temperament, so he was really charming standing there. They were afraid that the princess would be temporarily deceived by his appearance and wanted to expose his true face. However, reporting such things had always been looked down upon. They were worried that it would affect their image in the princess's heart, so no one dared to speak up easily. The study suddenly became quiet. Song Qing-shu had a headache. He thought to himself, "This woman made such a big scene. How will it end later? I heard that young master is proficient in the art of Qi Huang." Li Qinglu's voice carried a hint of smile. "I dare not say that I am proficient in it, but I know a little." Hearing Song Qing-shu's words, Shui Baochai rolled her eyes. Since when did he know the art of Qi Huang? "I do have a slight problem recently. It's mainly manifested in the body's weakness, and I can't sleep at night. Does young master have any treatment?" Li Qinglu asked. "Princess must be worried about your prince consort, so it's inevitable that you're a little afraid. Wait until everything is settled and you've found your prince consort. Then your illness will naturally be cured without any medicine." Song Qing-shu's words were serious, but he was secretly thinking that she was just beginning to feel amorous. "Thank you for your auspicious words." Li Qinglu replied. "I can treat patients like this," Wang Yao said. Seeing that the two of them were chatting more and more, the people around them finally couldn't stand it anymore. They were worried that if they continued chatting, the princess would really take a fancy to them. Even Su Liwu opened his mouth and said, "Princess, this time I have brought a few divine doctors with me. Some are from the Central Plains, and some are from the Western regions. All of them are top-notch medical experts. They will definitely be able to help Princess." "Thank you, Prince, for your good intentions. Prince suffered such heavy injuries yesterday. yet you're able to move around freely today. It's enough to show the brilliance of your country's doctors. However, this princess doesn't have any major problems, so there's no need to trouble your country's famous doctors. Li Qinglu tactfully declined. The expressions of the people in the surroundings instantly became strange. Some people almost laughed out loud. This Su Liuwu recovering so quickly did indeed prove the brilliance of the doctors under him. However, why did it sound so strange? Su Liuwu's expression darkened. This woman actually dared to poke at a scar. If it wasn't for the fact that her voice sounded sweet and innocent, as if she had done it unintentionally, he probably would have exploded on the spot. Xiuxing, who was at the side, came out to divert everyone's attention. Princess, all of us have experienced untold hardships to come here. People like me have even traveled tens of thousands of miles to come here. Today, we've eaten, drank tea, and admired paintings. We've finally waited for Princess to come out, but she's behind a curtain. Can you come out and let us see Princess? That's right, that's right. We all want to see Princess. His words instantly resonated with everyone. Many people present knew that their chances of marrying Princess were slim. If they could see Princess's appearance, they would at least be able to brag about it. Li Qinglu said, I've lived in my own room since I was young and have never seen outsiders. I once swore that I would only let my future husband see my appearance, so I'm sorry. When the noisy crowd heard her say this, they momentarily found it too embarrassing to insist. Love Chinese, network song Qing Shu almost laughed out loud. He thought to himself, back then, you were like a demoness in Class 1 hall, showing your face everywhere, but now you're describing yourself as a daughter of a noble family. Duan Yu also smiled. He recalled that this rule was similar to Sister Wan's back then. However, he didn't know that Li Qinglu had learned this from Mu Wanqing. At this moment, Si Siluo opened his mouth and said, Princess, please quickly explain how the written examination will be conducted. When I become Princess's husband, I'll naturally be able to see Princess. His tone naturally attracted a lot of scolding. How arrogant. The Qingtang Empire is only located at the borders. Where does this confidence come from? Everyone, please don't hurt the harmony. Li Qinglu cleared her throat and said, I've prepared 3 questions here. Please answer them one by one. If we're fated to meet, we'll naturally meet. All right. Princess quickly asked the first question. Unexpectedly, Li Qinglu didn't speak at this moment. Her personal maid, Xiao Lei, spoke on her behalf. The questions that Princess wants to ask have already been told to me. The first question has already been asked. Everyone was startled. Only then did they remember that she had just asked the question in Ningxiang Hall. From the princess's reaction, it should be that brat Jia Baoyu's answer that suited her the best. All of them were extremely vexed. They wondered why they didn't notice the first half of the question and ended up being taken advantage of by Jia Baoyu. Su Yewu's expression was also somewhat ugly. He snorted and said, Then what's the second question? Xiao Lei answered, When you're having a banquet with a group of friends, and one of your female friends gets drunk, will you send her home? Zhuang Juxian said in a low, muffled voice that men and women shouldn't touch each other. Naturally, I'll have her own maid send her home. Quan Guanxing, who hadn't had much of a presence earlier, was worried for him. So he quickly taught him an answer. Hua Qingtong's brother, Hua Ai, also hurriedly said, I only have the princess in my heart. Why would I send another lady home? Everyone expressed that they didn't care about beauties and were absolute gentlemen. I will send her home. Duan Yu, who was at the side, said in an unsociable manner. The palace maid, Xiao Lei, asked curiously why. Duan Yu said, That female friend got drunk with me. If I don't personally send her home, if she encounters danger on the way and something happens to her, I won't be able to escape blame even if I die 100 times. Xiao Lei smiled and said, Crown Prince Duan is truly a modest gentleman and attentive. Duan Yu's face heated up. Miss, you flatter me. He thought that it was fortunate that Miss Wang wasn't here. Otherwise, she would think that he really wanted to be the son-in-law. What will His Highness do? Xiao Lei then turned to Su Yewu. Chapter 2266. Fisk, the study was instantly filled with booze. At the same time, many people were secretly regretting that they had not thought of such an answer. Su Yewu was the smartest and had figured out the meaning of the princess's question. At this time, Hua Qingtong, who had been watching coldly from the side, suddenly said, "Your Highness, don't you feel guilty saying this? As far as I know, Your Highness has many beautiful women in your residence. Many of them are princesses and princes that you have taken after destroying the Western countries. How could someone like Your Highness give up the rest for one woman?" Seeing that she had publicly undermined him, Su Liwu could not help but feel hatred in his heart. In the future, after he destroyed the Wooden Table Luan tribe, he would definitely capture the two of them and bring them to his residence to be humiliated. However, on the surface, he replied with a normal expression, "After I marry the princess will naturally be my official wife." How can those concubines compare to the princess? Many of the young masters of the aristocratic families nodded. In this era, concubines were similar to servants. They could be given away as the master wished. Su Dompa, who was famous in the Northern Song dynasty, still gave his pregnant concubine to his friend. At the same time, it did not prevent him from writing a poem about his wife, 10 years of life and death. Everyone had the same understanding, so no one could criticize Su Liewu for saying that. At this time, the maid Xiao Lei turned to Song Qing and said, "May I ask what young Master Jiao will do?" "Carry her to bed, of course," Song Qing replied, as if it was a matter of course. Xiao Lei was startled. Thinking that she had not heard clearly, she asked, "Whose bed?" Song Qing replied, "If it is in my home, of course it will be my bed. If it is outside, of course it will be to find a nearby bed." When these words came out, everyone was in an uproar. Shui Baochai thought that Bao Yu was crazy. How could he say such a thing? Wouldn't this make the princess hate him? She had wanted to go forward and dissuade him, but she suddenly stopped. She thought that it was good that the princess hated him. If she really did make him her son-in-law, it would be troublesome. As she thought about it, a smile gradually appeared on her lips. Could it be that Bao Yu said this on purpose for me? Cultured scum, cultured scum. Some of the older people had already begun to scold him with righteous indignation. He really is shameless. He can even take advantage of someone when they are down. Even Hua Qingtong, who had received his kindness before, frowned in dissatisfaction. "Young Master Jia, what's the difference between your actions and those despicable perverts like Tian Boguang and Yun Zhonghe in the pugilistic world?" Song Qingshu smiled. "Of course it's different. Miss Hua, would you drink with a random man and get drunk?" Hua Qingtong replied, "Of course not. I will only drink with people I know very well, but I will never get drunk." "Why?" Song Qingshu asked. Hua Qingtong frowned slightly. "What else can there be? I'm a girl, so I have to pay attention to this." "That's right." Song Qingshu smiled and said, "Even someone as straightforward as Miss Hua would be careful not to get drunk when drinking with close friends. However, this lady got drunk. This proves something." "What does it mean?" Not only Hua Qingtong, but the attention of the other people present was also attracted. "Lu Zhulin, it means that the lady is completely defenseless against this man. She doesn't even worry about being." Song Qingshu revealed a knowing smile. "There's only one situation where a woman will be like this, and that is when she likes this man." Everyone came to a sudden realization. His analysis did make some sense. Naylan Rongrua couldn't help but say, "But even if the lady likes him, he can't take advantage of her." Song Qingshu looked him up and down and said with a smile, "Young Master Naylan should still be a virgin, right?" The others burst out laughing. Shui Baochai secretly spat. Bao Yu is getting more and more of a bastard now. She had also heard about Jia Bao Yu and Shiren. However, for someone like her who came from a big family, it was common for her to have a personal maid in her room. She didn't think much of it. Naylan Rongrua's fair face became even redder. "Do I have anything to do with this matter?" "Of course it has something to do with you," Song Qingshu said. "Just because you're a virgin, you don't understand a woman's heart. You should know that if a woman doesn't like you, she won't get drunk no matter how much she drinks with you. However, if she likes you, she may get drunk after drinking 2 glasses of wine. As for whether she is really drunk or not, You have to experience it yourself. Song Qing continued. Girls are very thin-skinned. She deliberately got drunk to create opportunities for you. If you still don't understand how to flirt, then you will really disappoint her. Everyone in the hall nodded subconsciously. Connecting it with their own experience, what he said did make some sense. However, there were still people who disagreed. But after all, this is an illicit affair without a matchmaker. How can it be? Song Qing spread his hands and said with a look of disdain, I only said to take her back to her bed. I didn't say what we were going to do. I just wanted to further deepen the relationship between us. In the end, your thoughts are too dirty. That person choked and couldn't say anything. At this time, Xiao Lei, the palace maid on the stage, smiled and said, Young Master Jias, your wise words are refreshing to this servant. Then I will go on to the princess's third question. Say it. The others were already impatient. Some of them hadn't performed well before and wanted to turn the tables with the last question. After all, this question was left to the end, so it must be of great importance. Xiaolei nodded and said in a soft voice, If you and the princess were to get married and one day the princess suddenly said to you, Son-in-law, look, my dress is wrinkled. How would you answer? Duan Yu listened with a blank expression and said subconsciously, It's wrinkled? It'll be fine as long as it's even. Su Liuwu couldn't help but sneer. Dali is indeed a small country on the border. Even the prince is so thrifty. However, our Mongolia is rich, so how can we let the princess suffer like this? At that time, I will give the princess 100 new dresses. I will gather famous tailors from all over the world to design beautiful dresses of different styles for the princess. The others all sucked in a breath of cold air. Even if someone wanted to imitate Su Liuwu, they wouldn't be able to say it so naturally. After all, showing off required strength. Which country in the world could compare to Mongolia? Even Shue Baochai sighed inwardly. Although this Su Liuwu was a bit arrogant, he really was very charming. If it was her who had been confessed like this, she would probably also be moved. The others all gave their own answers, but no one could answer as brilliantly as Su Liuwu. All of them couldn't help but feel dejected. Chapter 2267. Everyone's gaze immediately landed on Song Qing. Even though they were somewhat disdainful of his performance in the arena, the angles in which he had answered these questions were rather tricky, and there were some fallacies in his reasoning. Right now, the best answer to this question had already been taken by Su Lai. They wanted to see what else he could say. Song Qing took a sip of tea unhurriedly. Then he said in a leisurely manner, Although Western Xia is not as vast as Mongolia, it is still a powerful country on the continent. As a princess of a country, how could she lack new clothes? On the surface, Your Highness is good to the princess, but in reality, you are slapping the princess's face and slapping the Western Xia's face. Su Liuwu immediately became angry. Nonsense, this king definitely did not mean that. Song Qing waved his hand to indicate for him to calm down. The reason I said this is to say that the princess and the son-in-law said those things not because she did not have new clothes to wear and needed the son-in-law's help, but for another reason. Aren't you also misinterpreting the princess's meaning? Su Liuwu sneered. Whether it is a misinterpretation or not, everyone has a scale in their hearts and can naturally judge. Song Qing was not angry and said slowly. The surrounding people nodded secretly. What he said did make some sense. How could the princess say those words to the son-in-law just for a few sets of clothes? Hearing the whispers around him, Su Liuwu's expression was so gloomy that it was about to drip water. This king would like to hear what Master Jia has to say. It may not be very high, but it should be closer to the princess's original meaning than what your highness said. Song Qing then said, The Tang people think that being fat is beautiful, but nowadays all countries think that being thin is beautiful. The young ladies and madams in the boudoir often have a headache because they want to eat snacks, but they are worried that they will become fat. If one day they find that they have become thin, they will naturally be overjoyed. Hua Qingtong, who was at the side, did not care about this. She spent all her time riding on the battlefield and had never had such concerns. On the other side, Shue Baochai's face was slightly red because this was indeed the question that everyone in her circle was most concerned about. She thought, did I talk about this with Baoyu? How did he know so clearly? Su Yiwu said angrily, what are you talking about? That's why it said that Wang Yi usually only has those concubines to cater to you. You don't understand their hearts at all. Otherwise, you wouldn't have made this mistake. Song Qingshu shook his head. The princess excitedly ran to tell Fuma that her skirt had wrinkles. It wasn't because she wanted Fuma to buy a new one for her, but because she had gotten thinner recently and wanted her lover's sincere praise. I see. Although the people in the hall felt that his words were a little strange, it was not unreasonable after thinking about it carefully. However, Su Laiwu was not willing to accept it. In the end, this is just your unreasonable speculation. What the princess thinks naturally needs to be judged by the princess. That's right. We've answered all 3 questions in a row. Princess, please tell us the results. The others began to shout. In fact, it was not a big deal to lose the selection. Instead, waiting for the results was the most torturous thing. Unexpectedly, the princess did not answer. Instead, she got up and walked into the inner hall. In the blink of an eye, her beautiful figure had already disappeared. Everyone in the hall became anxious. Why did the princess leave? Who is going to be the son-in-law? The maid Xiao Lei came out and said, everyone, please go to the fragrance hall outside to drink tea and rest. The paintings on the wall will be sent out for everyone to choose. If Her Highness wishes to meet with anyone, she will naturally send someone to invite them. Everyone came to a realization. It seemed that the princess could not make up her mind in such a short time and might need to think quietly. Also, if she announced the son-in-law in front of so many people, and there was only one son-in-law, wouldn't that make the other princes lose face? After thinking through the crux of the matter, everyone stopped shouting and went to choose the paintings they liked. These paintings were all works of famous artists. Although it was a bit exaggerated that they were worth cities, they were still very valuable. It was not a waste to take a painting. With the warriors of Class 1 Hall leading the way, everyone walked out of the stone room and followed the old path back to the fragrance hall, where they had been drinking tea. After a while, the eunuch brought out paintings and scrolls and asked everyone to choose one. These people were in a mess. They only cared about whether the princess would summon them. How could they have the mood to choose paintings? The peerless Tang Sekfo Duan Yu had long taken a fancy to the painting Sword Dance by the Lake and snatched it. In the painting, a beautiful woman held a sword in her right hand and formed a sword sign with her left hand. She was dancing with a sword by the lake and a mountain. Her expression was elegant, bright, and charming. In an instant, his spirit flew around. One moment, he seemed to be beside Wang Yuyin, and the next moment, he seemed to be in the cave of the Wuliang Mountain. After getting this painting, he did not care about the Xisha marriage selection anymore. Everyone drank tea and chatted, guessing the answers of so many people just now, not knowing which one suited the princess the most. After a long discussion, everyone agreed that Su Liewu and Jia Baoyu were more likely. Hearing their words, Su Liewu snorted. He was not worried about this at all. With his status as a Mongolian prince, even his own troops were stronger than Xisha's. How could Xisha let the princess marry someone else when he came personally to propose? These written and martial examinations were just an excuse for others to pretend to be fair. How can that playboy compete with me? Su Yewu sneered and subconsciously looked at Jia Baoyu. Suddenly, his eyes narrowed. Where is she? At this time, the others also noticed the abnormality. Why isn't Jia Baoyu here? Shue Baochai was shocked. She had been distracted and did not notice. Now, she realized that Jia Baoyu was not by her side. At this time, the maidservant Xiao Lei came out with a slight smile. My humble country has already chosen the prince consort. I have troubled everyone to come all the way here. Other than the paintings, my humble country has also prepared some meager gifts. I hope everyone does not mind. What? The prince consort has been chosen? Who is it? A group of people surrounded her. Facing so many people at the same time, Xiao Lei was so scared that she took 2 steps back. She looked embarrassed. The prince consort is Jia Baoyu, young Master Jia. What? Su Yiwu had been smiling as he waited for the other party to make the announcement. Who knew that the result would be so unexpected? Are you kidding me? That pretty boy surnamed Jia. I can beat 10 of him. Sigh. Who asked him to be a pretty boy? Little girls just like to be handsome. F***CK. Why didn't my parents give me a more handsome son? Shui Baochai felt her hands and feet go cold. She subconsciously walked over and grabbed Xiaolei's hand. Did you guys make a mistake? How could Jia Baoyu be the prince consort? Xiaolei looked confused. Young Master Jia got first place in the combat examination, and his answers in the theory examination were the most suitable for the princess. If he wasn't the prince consort, who else could it be? Shui Baochai felt her mind go blank. She stood there in a daze. She did not know what was happening around her. Li Qinglu, who was hiding in the dark and observing, said sourly, "Your charm is really great. Even after you change your appearance, you can't stop the lady from liking you so much." Song Qingshu shook his head. The one she likes is Jia Baoyu, his childhood sweetheart. Sigh. She must be feeling terrible right now. Tisk TSK. Look at how protective you are. Do you want me to send someone to keep her so that you can comfort her? Li Qinglu said with a smile that was not a smile. Song Qingshu picked her up and hit her twice. You're full of evil tricks. Your husband is going to teach you a lesson. Come on, Li Qinglu crooked her finger, her eyes full of charm. Chapter 2268. On the side, Wanyan Zhongjia laughed out loud. 1,000,000 soldiers? You Mongolians have a lot of assets, but even if you add all your troops, Temujin's Chieshui army, the other princes' armies, and the servants' armies, you won't even have 1,000,000. Who are you trying to scare? Su Yiwu thought to himself, I told you to massacre the Western Xia, and you're telling me if there's 1,000,000 or not. Was this a F***king million thing? He was about to explode when he remembered that he had lost all the experts he had brought with him, and that the enemy also had someone like Ouyang Feng, the Western poison. Besides, this was the Western Xia, and he would be at a disadvantage if he caused trouble here. So, he could only snort and leave with a gloomy face. Su Yiwu left in anger, but Wanyan Zhongjia couldn't be happy. He looked in the direction of the inner hall and pouted. When I get back, I'll also hold a matchmaking convention. Since the prince had been chosen, the others all left dejectedly with the paintings. Only Shui Baochai stood there for a long time, as if she had not lost her soul. The maid Xiaolei quickly came back with a note. Miss Shui, young Master Jia gave this to you. Shui Baochai shivered and quickly opened the note. It said, Sister Bao, they want me to stay in the palace to meet the old princess, the empress, and the others. You should go back first. Take care. Song Qingshu was pretending to be Jia Baoyu, so he must have practiced his handwriting. Naturally, he wouldn't reveal any flaws. Shui Baochai felt a sweetness in her throat, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of her mouth. Her vision darkened, and she fainted. Southern Song's companions hurried to support her, and Xiaolei quickly found an imperial doctor to treat her. I didn't expect this woman to be so infatuated with you. Li Qinglu couldn't help but say from the dark. Not to me, but to her childhood sweetheart. Song Qingshu's figure moved slightly. He was about to go out and investigate, but he hesitated. There was nothing to say in this situation, so he stopped. Fortunately, the imperial doctor had checked that it was just a side effect of breathing. It wasn't anything serious, and she would be fine after a good rest. Xiaolei had originally asked the palace maids to carry her to a room in the palace to rest, but Shui Baochai slowly woke up. She didn't want to stay in the palace anymore and struggled to go back. Xiaolei had to arrange a carriage to escort her back. When Hua, Qingtong, Galdan, and the others arrived at the Southern Song Dynasty's diplomatic mission to congratulate Jia Baoyu on becoming the emperor's son-in-law, they were shocked to find that the atmosphere of the entire embassy was very strange. Shui Baochai, who had been in charge, was nowhere to be seen, and no joy could be seen on the faces of the others. The Liu brothers and Qiu Tongfu naturally didn't need to be mentioned. They had always looked down on the ignorant and incompetent Jia Baoyu, but in the end, they didn't manage to get anything out of it. Instead, Jia Baoyu took advantage of them. Naturally, they were extremely displeased. Even Xue Pan, who was usually on good terms with Jia Baoyu, couldn't feel happy. After all, Jia Baoyu had always treated Xue Pan as his brother-in-law. But now, he had married another woman. What was going on? Hua Qingtong and the rest noticed the strange atmosphere. After staying for a while, they felt extremely uncomfortable and hurriedly left. The yellow-robed girl had just returned from sending off the princess of Jinsheng. When she noticed this scene, she hurriedly grabbed Xue Pan and asked him what was going on. When she heard that Jia Baoyu had been chosen as the emperor's son-in-law, she was immediately flustered. Is the Xixia princess blind? Xue Pan was immediately dissatisfied. Baoyu's talent and appearance are the best of the best. How is he bad? Moreover, my younger sister has a good impression of him. Is she blind as well? The yellow-robed girl couldn't be bothered with him. She directly asked, "Where is Miss Xue?" Xue Pan pouted in a certain direction. She locked herself in her room after returning from the palace. Before he could finish, he realized that the other party was nowhere to be seen. The yellow-robed girl came to Xue Baochai's room and called out a few times from outside. She then pushed the door open and walked in. She found the other party leaning on the table in a daze. "Baochai, I've heard about the matter. You have to be more open-minded." The yellow-robed girl sighed and asked what love was in the world. "Sister Yang, you're back." Xue Baochai's eyes lit up when she saw the yellow-robed girl. "How can I be open-minded? I was the one who personally escorted him to the marriage contest. I even gave him advice along the way. Who would have thought that I would really push him into the arms of another woman?" The yellow-robed girl walked over and kissed her hand. "In fact, Baoyu isn't a good match. You can just get out of it." "Why not?" Xue Baochai shook her head. "I grew up with Baoyu. You won't understand this kind of feeling." Her tears fell as she spoke. The yellow-robed girl saw that Xue Baochai was getting sadder and sadder. She was worried that Xue Baochai would do something stupid. She changed her method of persuasion. "Don't you feel that there's something strange about this marriage contest in Xixia?" "What do you mean?" Xue Baochai looked puzzled. The yellow-robed girl said, "You grew up with Jia Baoyu. Of course you know how good he is. But the Xixia princess doesn't know him. Why did she choose him among so many young talents? You should know very well that there are many people who are more handsome and powerful than him in this marriage contest. But Baoyu won the first place in the wushu test after all, and his answers in the written test also suit the princess." Xue Baochai answered subconsciously. The yellow-robed girl rolled her eyes. "Others don't know that he won the first place in the wushu test, but don't you? There are so many spies in the Class 1 hall watching the arena. It's impossible for the Xixia princess not to know what happened to the first place. But in the end, she still chose Jia Baoyu, who is neither good in literature nor in martial arts. The motive behind it is very suspicious." "So you mean they're going to harm Baoyu?" Hearing that Baoyu might be in danger, Xue Baochai immediately sat up straight. The yellow-robed girl shook her head. "This is also the thing I can't figure out. I don't understand why the Xixia princess would choose him as the son-in-law. If Jia Sherdao was still in power, it would be understandable. But now," Xue Baochai suddenly stood up. "No, I have to go see Baoyu. I'm afraid he is in danger." The yellow-robed girl was shocked. "But he is in the palace now." Xue Baochai shook her head. "No, my eyelids have been twitching. I have to see him to be at ease." The yellow-robed girl hesitated for a while. Seeing that Xue Baochai had made up her mind, she was worried that something might happen to her. So, she said, "I'll go with you." "Thank you." Xue Baochai didn't refuse. Although her martial arts were not weak, she was not sure if she could break into the palace. With the yellow-robed girl looking after her, she would feel much more at ease. After the discussion, the two sneaked out of the hostel quietly. After all, breaking into the palace at night was something that could not be seen. If they were not careful, they could easily cause a diplomatic incident. So, they didn't dare to alarm anyone. Chapter 2269. Aren't you afraid of criticism if you leave him in the palace right after choosing your son-in-law? Song Qingshu pinched her cheeks. Although she had an oval face, she was still a young girl full of collagen. We don't have as many formalities as the Southern Song dynasty. If you like him, you could be together. Moreover, we control the court. Who dares to say anything? Li Qinglu twisted her body. Obviously, she felt a little itchy on her face. That's true. Song Qingshu remembered that Menggu in the demigods and semi-devils had also asked Shuju to stay that day. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but ask, if it weren't for me, who would you choose today? What do you think of Shuju? I would probably choose Suliwu. There must be many people in our country who would be happy to arrange a marriage with the powerful Mongolia. Li Qinglu frowned. Shuju? That fake monk? He's so ugly. Wouldn't I be blind to choose him? His appearance is indeed a bit ordinary. Song Qingshu suddenly felt relieved. In the original work, the plot between the princess of Xixia and Shuju was very illogical. Did the princess fall in love with him just because they had sex? Instead of taking revenge on the man who had humiliated her, she deliberately chose a husband for him. It should be known that the princess of Xixia was not a noble lady in the Southern Song dynasty who paid attention to the 3 obediences and 4 virtues. Moreover, she was Li Qiushui's granddaughter. Her Majesty the Empress has arrived. While the two were being intimate, a palace maid suddenly announced from outside. Li Qinglu hurriedly sat up straight in his arms and said with a smile, "Last time, she gave way to me. Today, I will give you to her." Song Qingshu couldn't help but complain. Why do I feel like I've become Tang Sung? What Tang Sung? Mu Wanqing happened to come in and heard it. She was confused. It's the story of Tang Sung and a group of beautiful female demons. Song Qingshu roughly told her. The more he spoke, the more strange his expression became. Why did I feel like I was talking about Jinping Mei in A Good Journey to the West? This Xuanzang is really heartless. He has wasted so many women's infatuation with him. Mu Wanqing snorted coldly. Li Qinglu's focus was on something else. She smiled and said, "If I really eat Tang Seng's meat, I can guarantee that I will eat it every day. Brother Song, you are my Tang Seng's meat. It just so happens that you have become the emperor's son-in-law. For the time being, stay in the palace and serve us." At the side, Mu Wanqing's face turned red, and she spat. "You want to be a seductress, but I don't." Song Qingshu replied, "I'm afraid we won't be able to stay here for long. This time, Sulai has lost face, so the Mongolians will definitely make a big move. If my guess is correct, within 3 months to half a year, the Mongolians will invade. I need to prepare for a rainy day and contact the various allied armies." Everyone in the world thought that the Western Xia dynasty's groom selection was held for Su Liuwu. Now that the emperor's son-in-law had chosen someone else, how could Su Liuwu and the Mongolians find a way out of this embarrassing situation? Moreover, the Mongolians had almost completed their western expedition. Now, their attention had turned to the Central Plains, and they were worried about not having an excuse to send troops. This time, the Western Xia dynasty's groom selection gave them a justifiable opportunity to send troops. Of course, Song Qingshu did not regret it. If he could not even protect his own woman, how could he stand in this world? Moreover, there would be a battle with the Mongolians sooner or later. Even if they did not fight this time, they would find another excuse to invade. "Are you leaving again?" Mu Wanqing suddenly felt a little disappointed. They had always been apart more than together. Li Qinglu, who was at the side, snorted. "I think he just can't let go of that Mongolian princess, so he's looking for an excuse to see her." Song Qingshu's face heated up. He said, "I think he just can't let go of that Mongolian princess, so he's looking for an excuse to see her. All right. From the 3 questions you answered, I can tell what kind of womanizer you are." Li Qinglu wrinkled her nose. "Take advantage of the time you still have to accompany Sister Mu." As she spoke, she pushed Mu Wanqing into his arms. Mu Wanqing fell into Song Qingshu's arms. She cried out in surprise and said angrily, "Why are you dragging me into this again?" Li Qinglu said with a smile, "Last time you gave her to me, so I can't take everything for myself. Today, I'll give my wedding night to you." After saying that, she left in high spirits. When she left, she did not forget to thoughtfully close the door for them. There were only the 2 of them left in a room. Mu Wanqing's pretty face immediately turned red. This girl is getting crazier and crazier. How can there be a wedding night on the first day of the groom selection? Song Qingshu hugged her soft body and whispered in her ear, "In any case, I just want a beautiful bride to consummate our marriage. I don't care who comes." Mu Wanqing's body immediately softened. She had been with him for a long time, so she naturally knew his nature. Of course you can't wait for someone else to come. While the two of them were being intimate in the room, a guard's noisy voice suddenly came from the palace. "There's an assassin." Mu Wanqing immediately sat up straight, revealing her perfect and flawless upper body. "Ah, there's an assassin in the palace." Song Qingshu pulled her back again. "Who cares whether it's an assassin or not? There's an elite from Class 1 hall here anyway. You're so annoying." Mu Wanqing pouted coquettishly. No one knew what she had encountered, but she moaned and could no longer speak. After a while, Song Qingshu suddenly stood up and sneered. "I didn't expect that an assassin would be able to sneak his way here." As he spoke, he raised his hand. His good time had been interrupted, and he did not intend to show mercy. At that moment, a soft voice came from outside the door. "Baoyu, Baoyu, are you there?" Song Qingshu was stunned and instinctively put his hand away. "Why is she here? Who is it?" Mu Wanqing asked as she put on her clothes. "Shui Baochai." Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. "She even found her way here?" Mu Wanqing was shocked. She had already heard about her from Li Qinglu and could not help but feel a little jealous. "I'll kill her with one arrow." But when she raised her hand, she realized that her arm was bare. She had not put on her clothes properly, so there was no poisoned sleeve dart. Hearing the footsteps getting closer, Song Qingshu said to Mu Wanqing, "Hide for a while. It's not good if she sees you. The palace is my territory. Why should I hide?" Mu Wanqing snorted. But even though she said that, she did not want others to see her current appearance. She hastily packed up her clothes and jogged to the back of the screen at the side. Just as she hid, a beautiful figure jumped in from the window. "Baoyu, you're really here." In that instant, Song Qingshu had put on Jia Baoyu's mask again. He pretended to be surprised and greeted her. "Sister Bao, why are you here? Isn't it?" Shui Baochai suddenly blushed. "I'm worried about you. They didn't make things difficult for you, did they?" Song Qingshu smiled embarrassedly. "Of course not. They even took out their most precious thing to entertain me." Mu Wanqing, who was behind the screen, secretly spat. She thought that Song Qingshu was really annoying. The most precious thing in the entire palace was her, the Empress. The most precious thing? Shui Baochai was stunned. She did not understand what he was talking about. At this time, Li Qiushui's cold voice suddenly sounded in the palace. "You dare to break into the palace at night. Do you think there's no one in Xixia?" Chapter 2270. What's wrong? Noticing that she was nervous, Song Qingshu came to her and asked. "Sister Yang came with me. She distracted the pursuers for me so that I could sneak into the princess's bedchamber." Shui Baochai looked anxious. "When we were in the Imperial City Department, we investigated the Class 1 Hall of Xixia and knew that it was founded by the old princess of Xixia. The old princess's kung fu is unfathomable. I'm afraid that Sister Yang is in danger." "Why is she here?" Song Qingshu didn't expect that the assassin was the yellow-robed woman. "I was worried that you would be in danger here, and Sister Yang didn't trust me to come here alone." Shui Baochai bit her lips tightly. "What should we do now?" "Don't worry. It's all right." Song Qingshu was also stunned. He wouldn't let anything happen to the yellow-robed woman, but he couldn't tell her the reason. How could it be all right? As expected, Shui Baochai didn't believe his comforting words. She grabbed his hand and said, "Let's go. I'll take you out first, and then come back to help Sister Yang." "Take me out?" Song Qingshu was stunned. How should he answer? Feeling his hesitation, Shui Baochai's pretty face turned pale. "Why? You don't want to go with me?" "It's not that I don't want to, but..." Song Qingshu was thinking about how to explain. "But you don't want to leave the princess of Xixia and the glory and wealth of Xixia?" Shui Baochai looked at him coldly. Song Qingshu hesitated for a moment. It would be good to take this opportunity to end things with her, in case she kept thinking about Baoyu and made more trouble later. Sister Baoyu, you know the current situation of the Jia family. What future can I have if I go back to Linen? Shui Baochai opened her mouth, but couldn't refute. Now the Jia family could still maintain its former glory largely because of the failure of the northern expedition and the rebellion in Sichuan. They didn't dare to touch the Jia family for the time being. However, after the situation was stabilized, they would definitely settle accounts with the Wu-Tang Mountain. As the legitimate son of Jia Sherdao, how could Jia Baoyu escape? Song Qingshu continued. Even if we don't consider those things, let's talk about your father. Will he agree to let you marry me? Shui Baochai's body swayed. It wasn't that she hadn't thought about these problems, but every time she thought about it, she would subconsciously avoid it to numb herself. Now that the other party had said it directly, she just realized that the two of them were destined to have no future. So, you came here to look for the princess of the Western Xia country this time? Shui Baochai bit her lips so hard that they almost bled. Seeing her heartbroken look, Song Qingshu couldn't bear to see her. But as the saying goes, it's better to get the pain over with. Otherwise, she might find out that Jia Baoyu was already dead in the future. So he nodded and said, yes. Shui Baochai's body swayed, and she smiled sadly. I'm so stupid. I'm actually helping you like a fool, saying that I'm fighting for your face. Sister Bao, now that things have come to this, you should quickly leave the palace. Otherwise, it will be troublesome if you are caught. Song Qingshu kindly reminded. I don't need you to teach me. Shui Baochai glared at him and was about to go out when Li Qinglu's voice came from outside. Brother Song, an assassin is coming. Shui Baochai recognized the princess's voice. Her first reaction was to subdue the assassin and then use her as a hostage to help the girl in the yellow dress out of trouble. But when she was about to take action, she suddenly remembered that she had fought with this princess in Lin and City. Although the princess was young, her martial arts were extraordinary, and she was afraid that she would not be a match for her. So, she flashed and was ready to hide, and then launch a sneak attack when the princess was unprepared. Seeing her running behind the screen, Song Qingshu stretched out his hand and wanted to call her, but it was too late. 520-inch At this time, Shui Baochai and Mu Wanqing stared at each other, dumbfounded. Mu Wanqing recognized that the other party was the empress of the Western Xia country, and her mind went blank for a moment. She thought, why is the empress in the princess's room, and staying alone with Baoyu? Noticing that the other party was a little disheveled, her expression suddenly became strange. When she first came to the Western Xia country to visit the empress, her woman's intuition told her that the empress of the Western Xia country treated Baoyu a little differently. But she didn't think about it that time. After all, the two of them had nothing to do with each other. But now, the scene in front of her made her connect all the things. Baoyu and the empress of the Western Xia country seemed to have an affair. As a member of the Imperial City Guard, she had seen a lot of bizarre things, but the scene in front of her was still beyond her imagination. Mu Wanqing's embarrassed appearance was seen by the other party, and she was already ashamed and angry. She immediately attacked the other party. Unfortunately, she didn't wear the butterfly sleeve dart that she was best at. How could she be a match for Shui Baochai, who had been practicing in the Imperial City Guard? She was almost instantly countered. All this took a long time to describe, but from the two women facing each other to Mu Wanqing being countered, it happened in the blink of an eye. Perceiving what happened behind the screen, Song Qingshu had a headache. When he was about to dissuade her, Li Qinglu pushed the door open and came in. There is an assassin outside. His martial arts is very high. Even the old princess was alarmed. At this time, Shui Baochai, who was behind the screen, sealed Mu Wanqing's acupoints and motioned her not to make a sound. Oh, even the old princess was alarmed. That's quite high. Song Qingshu answered absent-mindedly. At this time, his attention was all behind the screen, for fear that something would happen to them. Seeing that he didn't care, Li Qinglu couldn't help laughing. That's right. It doesn't make much difference to you whether the assassin's martial arts is high or low. Shui Baochai, who was behind the screen, understood another meaning. With Jia Baoyu's martial arts, as long as it was an assassin, it would make no difference to him. At this time, she was wondering about another thing. Why did the princess's tone seem to be very familiar with him? Hey, why are you alone, Mu? Li Qinglu was looking around. Song Qingshu hurriedly stepped forward to stop her and change the topic. Has the assassin been caught now? Not yet, but the old princess personally took action. The assassin can't escape. Li Qinglu's tone was full of admiration. Oh, then you go and tell the old princess that she must catch him alive. Don't hurt the assassin. Song Qingshu knew that Li Qiushui was cruel and merciless. He was worried that something would happen to the yellow-shirt woman, but he couldn't leave at this time. Why? It doesn't matter if an assassin is killed. Li Qinglu frowned. Song Qingshu hurriedly said, after experiencing the chaos in the city, the guards in the palace have been strengthened by several times. Since the other party was still able to break in, it's obvious that they have a powerful background. Of course, we have to capture them alive and interrogate them. Well, yes. I don't know which force sent him. He really thinks that our Xixia is easy to bully. Li Qinglu said and left angrily. Seeing her leave, Song Qingshu hurriedly came behind the screen. Seeing the posture of the two, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. The flood broke the temple of the Dragon King. Harmony brings wealth. Harmony brings wealth. As he spoke, he held Xue Baochai's hand. Xue Baochai had intended to restrain Mu Wanqing, but her hand was numb. She didn't know what happened, but she didn't care. She just thought that she was in a trance and didn't guard against him. Who is her family? The two women said in unison. Xue Baochai glared at Song Qingshu and said, Bao Yu, I didn't expect that not only you and the princess of Xixia, but also their empress. How could a virgin girl like her say the following words? At this time, a sense of absurdity arose in her heart. The Xixia kingdom had fought many wars in the past 100 years. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers had died, but they still couldn't conquer the Xixia kingdom. Now, it was conquered by Jiao Baoyu in an alternative way. Chapter 2271. Song Qingshu. Xue Baochai looked at Song Qingshu with a puzzled face. She suddenly remembered that the Xixia princess seemed to have called him Brother Song when she came in. Bao Yu, why did she call you Song Qingshu? Now Xue Baochai didn't even care that the empress called him Song Qingshu. Her attention was all on the word song. Song Qingshu had a headache and hurriedly explained, Well, when I escaped from Mongolia, I met the empress by chance. At that time, she was not the empress yet. Well, because the Mongolian masters have been chasing after me. Fortunately, the empress and the princess saved me. At that time, in order to avoid the Mongolians, I casually took the surname Song. I see. Xue Baochai looked at Mu Wanqing doubtfully. Mu Wanqing frowned slightly and snorted, but she didn't refute it. So, this marriage has already been decided by you? Xue Baochai suddenly said in a cold voice. Song Qingshu said embarrassedly, It's not decided. If it weren't for my good luck, I wouldn't have been able to go to the end of the wushu test. Xue Baochai remembered that she was worried that he wouldn't be able to pass the group competition, so she taught him the moves step by step. Ask the old Xixia princess to stop. Xue Baochai thought that the girl in yellow was still in danger. She didn't have time to feel sad and hurriedly said to Mu Wanqing. Although the girl in yellow was good at martial arts, the old Xixia princess was too unfathomable. Mu Wanqing turned her face away and said coldly, You also know that she is the old Xixia princess. I'm just a new empress. How can I control her? Xue Baochai snorted. You still know that you are the empress. If others know that the empress of Xixia has done something wrong to the emperor, I don't know what will happen. What nonsense are you spouting? Hearing the other party describe her as that kind of woman, Mu Wanqing instantly flew into a rage and was about to charge over. Song Qingshu hurriedly stood between the two of them and said, Look at the time. Don't mess around here. Then he lowered his voice and said to Mu Wanqing, You go out and tell Li Qiushui first. Leave it to me. Mu Wanqing stomped her feet and turned to leave. When she left, she pouted. Obviously, she was extremely unhappy. Why did you let her go? Xue Baochai was anxious and wanted to catch up with this important hostage. Song Qing grabbed her. Don't worry, she will go out and plead with old princess, so Sister Yang will be fine. Only then did Shue Baochai look at him strangely. It seems that the Empress is quite obedient to you. At this moment, she suddenly felt that the man who had grown up with her was a little strange. She didn't know him as well as she thought she did. I'm just considering the gains and losses. Song Qingshu awkwardly explained, I'll send you out first. Otherwise, if more people discover you, I'm afraid it will cause a dispute between the two countries. Shue Baochai was a little reluctant at first, but she was born in the Imperial City Department and had been deeply influenced by the ideology of loyalty and patriotism since childhood. She also didn't want to cause trouble for the court. The two were silent all the way until they reached the wall of the Imperial Palace. Shue Baochai then said, I originally wanted to take you out this time, but now that I see that you are like a fish in water in the Imperial Palace, you have a beautiful and noble empress and a lovely princess, I also can't bear to leave. Song Qingshu sighed, Sister Bao, I'm sorry, forget me. I hate you. Shue Baochai tiptoed and jumped out of the Imperial Palace. Her figure disappeared into the night sky. Song Qingshu raised his head and touched the water stains on his cheeks. He knew how sad she was at this time, but the real Jia Baiyu had died on the Island of Heroes. It was better for her to take this opportunity to forget him. 52 Literature When the yellow-robed woman flew out of the Imperial Palace and arrived at the appointed place, she was shocked to find Shue Baochai crying. What's wrong? Did you see Baoyu? I saw him. Shue Baochai wiped the tears on her cheeks with her hand. What happened to him? The yellow-robed woman asked. Don't mention him anymore. Shue Baochai just shook her head. Sister Yang, are you okay? The yellow-robed woman smoothed her messy hair. It was okay at first, but then the old Xixia princess's martial arts were too high. Fortunately, she retreated, otherwise it would have been a little troublesome. It seems that she is quite trustworthy. Shue Baochai said to herself. The yellow-robed woman was stunned. Her? Who are you talking about? Nothing, let's go back. Shue Baochai didn't tell her what she saw today. First, it was really unbelievable, and second, she didn't want Jia Baiyu to encounter any more danger. Seeing that she was not like when she first came, the yellow-robed woman was relieved. It seemed that the two of them had met and explained everything clearly. At this time, in the Imperial Palace, Mu Wanqing, Li Qinglu, and Yelu Nanxian were jointly interrogating Song Qingshu. Why did you let her go? What if she leaked our secret? Mu Wanqing was very annoyed when she thought of how she was controlled by the other party. Song Qingshu said with a wry smile, If I didn't let her go, would I kill her to silence her? Don't worry, with the relationship between her and Jia Baoyu, she won't tell others. Even if she did, who would believe that a dignified Xixia empress would have any relationship with me? The Southern Prince Song? On the side, Li Qinglu smiled like a flower. In the end, some people's bad habit of having tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex is acting up again. They can't bear to let her go. Yelu Nanxian said with a strange expression, I also think that Brother Song's action is too risky. She was originally dealing with the departure of various countries' diplomatic corps, but when she learned that there was an assassin in the Imperial Palace, she hurried back. And you still insist on keeping Jia Baoyu's identity, as if there really is something between me and Jia Baoyu. Mu Wanqing said angrily. Song Qingshu said apologetically, I really don't want to kill her, but this is not the only reason. After Xulia Wu returns to Mongolia, the Mongolians will definitely retaliate. At that time, we need to contact other countries to resist the Mongolians. Although the Southern Song dynasty is weak, its real national strength is not weak. But the Southern Song dynasty and the Mongolians have made a truce. If we want them to send troops, we must have a reasonable reason. And Jia Baoyu is the emperor's son-in-law of Xixia. Hearing his explanation, the women gradually felt relieved. Li Qinglu also came out to smooth things over with a smile. I was wondering why I didn't see Sister Mu when I entered the room just now. It turns out that you were hiding behind the screen with Miss Shue. So, were you dressed at that time? Mu Wanqing blushed and hurriedly explained, Of course I was dressed. What are you thinking in that head of yours? Sister Mu, of course I believe you. But with Brother Song's temperament, I don't believe that he would leave you alone. Li Qinglu teased a few more times, then walked out. Forget it, forget it. This princess will not disturb you to continue your wedding night. Yelu Nanxian's face heated up and she hurriedly stood up. I'll also leave first. Mu Wanqing was embarrassed and hurriedly reached out to grab the two of them. Don't go. Chapter 2272. Ah! Mu Wanqing felt as if she was scalded and hurriedly flung her hand away. Girl, why do you always have such ridiculous thoughts in your head? How is it ridiculous for a lover to do something joyful? Don't be brainwashed by the Song people's etiquette. Li Qinglu said righteously. Song Qingshu didn't say anything, but his face was full of anticipation. Unfortunately, his hopes were dashed in the end. I can't be bothered to talk to you. I'll leave this place to you. Mu Wanqing spat, then grabbed her clothes and left as if she was fleeing. You're satisfied so quickly? Li Qinglu's beautiful eyes widened. She was obviously a little surprised. Yelu Nanxian couldn't bear to listen anymore. You're so young. Aren't you a little too? She didn't know how to describe it. Li Qinglu didn't mind. She's a little temptress from Elite Hall. Since big sister Mu has left, I'll leave this womanizer to you. Leave it to me? Yelu Nanxian was about to leave when she was pushed back. That's right. I still have to go explain to the old princess about what happened just now. Li Qinglu looked at Song Qingshu with hidden bitterness. You still need me to deal with the aftermath. Yelu Nanxian blushed. But today is your groom selection. Don't worry. I've had enough of the past 2 days. Today I'll treat it as filial piety to big sister. Li Qinglu gave her a light push and pushed her into Song Qingshu's arms, leaving behind a string of bell-like laughter as she floated away. Qinglu just loves to mess around. Being held in his arms, feeling the man's broad chest, Yelu Nanxian's heart beat faster. Yelu Nanxian was tall and slender, giving off a different feeling when hugging her. Song Qingshu thought of her well-proportioned, long legs and the perfect figure formed from long periods of sword training, and he couldn't help but feel a surge of heat in his lower abdomen. Feeling his change, Yelu Nanxian bit her lip. Let's go to my room, on Qinglu's bed. It feels a little weird. Song Qingshu knew that she was shy and naturally agreed. He followed her, using the darkness of the night to avoid the Taijian and palace maids, and sneaked into the crown princess palace. The young man and woman quickly became entwined together. Only the crumpled grand crown princess robe on the ground proved the passion in the room. Early the next morning, Song Qingshu left the palace feeling refreshed. He sighed to himself that if he had the chance, he should ask Gu Zixian for the Dual Cultivation Heart Sutra. He had been a bit tired the past 2 days, but after being with her, he was completely rejuvenated. It looked like this Heart Sutra had to be popularized in the palace. He planned to visit Shue Baochai and the others. After all, what happened last night had a great impact on them. It was better to comfort them. However, to his surprise, the Southern Song Pavilion was empty. There was no one there. It was not easy to find someone nearby to ask. Only then did he know that the Southern Song delegation had packed up overnight and left as soon as the city gate opened in the morning. It looks like Shue Baochai wants to leave this sad place as soon as possible. Song Qingshu let out a long sigh. He thought back to how Shue Baochai had taken care of him on the way here, and how she had given him all kinds of ideas for the betrothal contest. Although he knew that it was all because of Jia Baoyu, he was still touched. Song Qingshu. At this time, a surprised voice came from the door. Song Qingshu turned around and saw a beautiful woman with a veil over her face. Who else could it be but Gu Zixian? Qin, why are you here? Song Qingshu had just been thinking about her, and now they were meeting again. We're going back to Peerless City, so we came to say goodbye. Gu Zixian's gentle eyes were filled with sadness. You're leaving? Song Qingshu had actually learned from her that they were going to part ways the last time they met, but he didn't think it would happen so quickly. Yes, the betrothal contest is over, and all the ambassadors are going back. I also have to go back to Peerless City. Gu Zixian looked around and couldn't help but pat her chest. I heard that the Southern Song Dynasty's ambassadors left early in the morning. I thought I wouldn't be able to see you again, but then I remembered that you're already the Emperor's son-in-law. Song Qing-shu felt awkward. He didn't know how to explain to her about being the Emperor's son-in-law, but Gu Zixian clearly didn't need him to explain. Her face didn't show any anger. Ahem, Xianair, it's time to go. A gentle voice came from outside. This kind of voice was like honey, enough to make any man's imagination roam. Song Qing-shu had already sensed that the dual cultivator madam was here. She had been cultivating the dual cultivator mantra for many years, so her words and actions were inevitably somewhat seductive. However, he knew that she was a dignified person, so he naturally wouldn't let his imagination run wild. A trace of reluctance appeared on Gu Zixian's face, but she couldn't stand the urging from outside. She could only say, Song Qing-shu, I have to go. Song Qing-shu sighed. All good things must come to an end. Take care on your journey. After parting with so many people today, he finally understood why ancient poets had so many poems about parting. Gu Zixian revealed an expression of struggle, but in the end, she still asked, Do you still mean what you said before? Song Qing-shu was startled. Only now did he realize what she was talking about. He couldn't help but smile. Don't worry, I'll definitely come to Peerless City to see you. I'll wait for you. The worry on Gu Zixian's face was swept away. Her smile was like the first melting of ice and snow. After saying this, she happily ran out. Song Qing-shu's somewhat depressed mood was also infected by her. When he arrived at the door, he saw the dual cultivator mantra's carriage turn the corner. Gu Zixian just happened to open the curtain and look at him. She excitedly waved at him. The dual cultivator's wife didn't expect her daughter to suddenly open the curtain. She didn't even have time to put on her veil, revealing a plump and beautiful oval face. Although she was a bit alarmed, when she saw Song Qing-shu, she still nodded in greeting. Song Qing-shu was startled and also nodded in greeting. He felt a bit awkward. After all, she had seen him with her daughter in the courtyard that day, so he felt a bit guilty. When he returned to the imperial palace, he found Wanyan Zhongjie and Li Qinglu in a confrontation outside the palace gates. You were pretending to be mysterious before, but now you're showing your face in public. When Wanyan Zhongjie first saw Li Qinglu, he felt that she had the appearance of a seductive fox. He couldn't help but mock her. Li Qinglu smiled and said, I know that the princess has a good impression of my prince's son-in-law, but he's mine now. I'm going to be with him for a period of time, so there's no need for the princess to worry about him. I'm afraid that you won't have that luck. Wanyan Zhongjie sneered. He just happened to see Song Qing-shu return and said to him, I just received news that the Prince of Ruyang has been assassinated. Song Qing-shu was originally having a headache over the situation of the two of them being jealous, but when he heard her words, he was immediately shocked. The Prince of Ruyang is dead? Chapter 2273. Assassins? What a coincidence. Song Qing-shu frowned, feeling that there was a conspiracy behind all this. Wanyan Zhongjie replied, To the public, they were just assassins. Everyone is guessing that it was Temujin who did it. Song Qing-shu was silent. Last time, Zhao Min had told him that the relationship between the Ruyang household and the Khan was tense, so she had to go back and take care of them. A few days ago, Wang Baobao had also hurried back. It seemed that something had indeed happened to the Prince of Ruyang. Is there any news from the rest of the Ruyang household? Song Qing-shu asked worriedly. Wanyan Zhongjie curled his lips. If you want to ask Princess Xiaomin, just ask her directly. There's no need to be so secretive. After the Prince of Ruyang's death, everyone thought that the Ruyang household would rebel, but who would have thought that Princess Xiaomin would go to the Khan of Ashan to find out the truth for her father? At the same time, she brought her brother Wang Baobao's wife, Consort Han, and her young nephew to the capital. On the surface, it looked like she was going to complain, but in reality, she was taking the initiative to be hostages to show her loyalty. This made it difficult for Temujin to do anything to them. What a clever move. To the side, Li Qinglu couldn't help but say angrily, Wang Baobao is already married and has children. Why is he still looking for a wife? Song Qing-shu thought to himself, You've never planned to marry him. Aren't you getting too into character? Wanyan Zhongjia sneered. The customs of the Mongols are very different from those of the Central Plains. They can have multiple wives at the same time, just like Temujin. He has 4 empresses and countless other concubines. Wang Baobao is a prince with real power. It's not a big deal for him to have a few wives. Li Qinglu snorted coldly and turned her face away. She was clearly annoyed at being mocked. The corners of Wanyan Zhongjia's lips curled up slightly, clearly pleased with himself. Little vixen, don't even think about getting what I can't have. The more he thought about it, the happier he was. He waved to Song Qingshu. I'm going back to the Jin Kingdom. You're welcome to visit me at Daxing Prefecture anytime. Be careful on your way. Song Qingshu said a few words and watched her leave. All his thoughts were on Zhao Min, and he didn't know how she was doing. He immediately went back to the palace to find Yalu Nanxian, Mu Wanqing, and the others to tell them about this matter. Yalu Nanxian said in an understanding tone, "We were just discussing how to prepare for the Mongolian attack. Brother Song, why don't you go to Mongolia? You can see Miss Zhao, and also find out more about the Mongolian attack." On the side, Mu Wanqing pursed her lips. It was obvious that she was a little jealous. She obviously did not want to be separated again after just being together. However, she also knew what was important and what was not. After hesitating for a moment, she did not say anything. She only exhorted him to pay attention to his safety. When they reached Helen, he should act according to his abilities. If things were impossible, he must not be impulsive. As for Li Qinglu, she was the first to hear the news and was already mentally prepared. She even ordered the servants to prepare the most expensive horse in the imperial palace, the Great One Horse. The journey to the Helen Forest is desolate. This horse can travel thousands of miles in a day. It can help Songlang. Song Qingshu did not expect the 3 women to be so easy to talk to. He had originally planned to accompany them for a day, but he was chased out by the 3 women. The 3 women could see that he was anxious and naturally did not want to waste his time at this time. Because the women's identities were sensitive, it was not convenient for them to send him off. Song Qingshu left the imperial palace alone and found Lady Zhen's residence. As soon as Lady Zhen saw him, she threw herself into his arms and thanked him excitedly for avenging the people of Khwarezmi. It was obvious that the news of Su Liu's body being burnt black in the arena and losing to the princess in the written exam had spread everywhere. Feeling the passion of the woman in his arms, if it was any other day, Song Qingshu would have gone with the flow. However, he had something to do today, so he hurriedly explained the reason for his visit. Full text knowing that Song Qingshu was going to the Helen Forest. Lady Zhen was surprised and offered to accompany him. Song Qingshu hesitated for a moment but still refused. This time, he was going deep into the enemy's camp. He could go or stay at will. If he brought another person, it would be difficult to ensure his companion's safety. Moreover, Lady Zhen had led Khwarezmi to fight against the Mongolians many times. Bringing her along would be like sending a sheep into the tiger's mouth. Lady Zhen also knew the importance of this matter, so she did not refuse. She only said that she would wait for his return in the city and then bid him farewell reluctantly. After settling all the matters in Xixia, Song Qingshu spurred the horse and galloped out of the north gate of Xingqing Prefecture. He rushed all the way to the north. In the beginning, there were still towns, but the surroundings became more and more desolate. Not to mention the market, there were not even a few people. After all, Xixia was different from the rich and populous Jiangnan. Here, there were Gobi, deserts, and of course grasslands everywhere. Seeing the sparsely populated surroundings, Song Qingshu suddenly realized a very serious problem. Most people in Mongolia lived in tents, and each tent was a family. It was very difficult to find a place to hide like the cities in the Central Plains, where there were houses and courtyards everywhere. Moreover, he was dressed like a Han, so he would be too conspicuous if he went there. However, he was still far from the Helen Forest, so he was not in a hurry. After traveling for half a day, night gradually fell. Song Qingshu arrived at the foot of the Helan Mountains before dark. Looking at the towering, snow-covered mountain top, he suddenly remembered Yu Fei's poem, "The River is Red." Bristling with anger, leaning on the railing, driving a long chariot, trampling through the Helan Mountains. A trace of doubt flashed across his face. Yu Fei was fighting with the Jin people, but the Helan Mountains were on the Xixia side. It was really like a pot falling from the sky. Speaking of Yu Fei, he could not help but think of Xiao Long Nu. He did not know where she was now. Song Qingshu suddenly felt that he was a scumbag. He was obviously going to rescue Zhao Min, but why was he thinking of another woman on the way? It was already dark, so it was naturally impossible to continue the journey. They found a campsite, made a bonfire, and were eating dry food. Suddenly, there was a rush of footsteps, and a young man and a woman staggered and ran over. Song Qingshu had long been aware of their arrival, but from their breathing and footsteps, he could tell that their martial arts were ordinary, so he did not pay much attention to them. Unexpectedly, they are Han people. Leave your horse, and you can go. The young man's tone was a little strange, but it was still barely understandable. Song Qingshu silently ate the pastries Mu Wanqing prepared for him and did not pay attention to him at all. However, he felt a little strange in his heart. Judging from a man's appearance, he should be from Central Asia, but he could speak Chinese so fluently. I'm sorry, brother, because my big brother's family was once harmed by Han people. He doesn't like Han people very much. At this time, the girl behind him hurriedly ran out to apologize. Can you sell this horse to us? We have urgent matters to attend to, and will pay a high price for it. No, Song Qingshu replied lightly. Although the young girl was beautiful, it did not cause any ripples in his heart. The only noteworthy thing was that the young girl's clothes were somewhat grassland style, but her appearance was more like that of a Jiangnan woman. When she spoke, there was a hint of Wu Nong's soft voice, which was really strange. Why are you talking so much nonsense with him? The horse belongs to whoever has the bigger fist, the young man said angrily. Chapter 2274. Hearing her words, the teenager frowned, but did not refute. Song Qingshu was a little curious. Is someone chasing you? The girl nodded. Yes, there is someone. No, he is an evil ghost. His ability is too terrifying. Thanks to our good horsemanship, we temporarily got rid of him. But now the horse is dead of exhaustion. I am afraid he will soon catch up with us. The girl looked very sad when she mentioned the horse dead of exhaustion. It was obvious that she had a deep relationship with the horse. Are you going to help us? The girl's eyes suddenly flashed a glimmer of hope. No. Song Qingshu's answer was also very simple. The Han people are really hateful. The teenager next to him was furious. He rolled up his sleeves and was about to hit him. The girl stopped him. Forget it, Supu. This horse is so handsome, it must be very valuable. If it were us, we would not be willing to sell it to others. The teenager sat down resentfully, but he could not help but murmur, what do the Han people know about horses? That can you sell us some dry food? We were in a hurry and have nothing to eat. The girl was a little embarrassed when she spoke. Obviously, she felt that such a request was a little shameful. Song Qingshu was surprised and threw a bag over. Eat it, it's free. The girl was overjoyed. Thank you. She took it and handed it to her companion. The teenager frowned. The Han people are the most treacherous. Be careful, there is poison in it. The girl shook her head. We met by chance, and there is no hatred between us. Why would they harm me? Besides, if they really have evil intentions, they should be more enthusiastic, so you worry too much. After saying that, she looked at Song Qingshu apologetically. Brother, I am sorry. Supu's mother was killed by the Han people using despicable means, so I have prejudice against the Han people. Please forgive me. Song Qingshu nodded. He would not get angry over such a small matter. The girl hurriedly ate a few mouthfuls, showing a nostalgic expression. Since I left Jiangnan, I have not eaten such exquisite pastries for a long time. Although Xixia was located in the northwest, the imperial palace of a country had gathered chefs from all over the country. Mu Wanqing herself had lived in the south for a long time, and she was very clear about Song Qingshu's taste. So the pastries she prepared were naturally of the Jiangnan style. You're from Jiangnan? Song Qingshu was a little surprised. Yes. The girl obviously did not want to talk about her life. She helped her companion pick up a few cakes, and carried them with her. Then, she returned the package to Song Qing-shu. "Thank you. We have to hurry up. Otherwise, the devil will catch up with us." Song Qing-shu nodded. They had only met by chance, and he had no interest in caring about other people's affairs. "That's right. You should also leave this place quickly. That person is very bad. Maybe you will also be in danger." The girl walked a few steps, then turned around and reminded him. Song Qing-shu smiled and said, "You have a good heart. I'm not afraid of bad people." The young man urged, "Don't waste any more time. Otherwise, that person will catch up." At this moment, a burst of laughter came from the air. We can't leave anymore." A dark figure fell to the ground with a bang, raising a cloud of dust. Song Qing-shu frowned and found a person crawling up in a sorry state. He looked very fierce, but now he was cowering like a quail. Song Qing-shu's attention was on another person on the side. He was tall and straight, wearing a sleeveless coat the color of a gorilla's blood, a pair of pure white pants, and a pair of straw sandals. His thick snow-white hair hung over his broad shoulders. His eyes were like lightning, and his face was as sinister as an eagle's, without the slightest expression. His expression suddenly became a little interesting. He did not expect to see an old acquaintance here. Who else could it be but the Water Moon Great Master? But who was this person on the ground? Is this the little girl who has the treasure map of Gaochong Maze? The Water Moon Great Master glanced at that person. The person nodded. Yes, the treasure map was with White Horse Li San and Gold and Silver Sword Shang Wanhong. Before they died, they gave the treasure map to this woman. The Water Moon Great Master nodded, and then a cold light flashed in her eyes. "Then you have no more value." The person covered his throat, and his mouth made a gurgling sound, but he could not say anything. Finally, he fell to the ground unwillingly, and when he died, his eyes were wide open. The girl on the other side could not help but sigh. The arrogant 3 heroes of Luoyang died so easily. Song Qing-shu frowned. He did not remember any information about the 3 heroes of Luoyang, but judging from the person's martial arts, he must be a nobody in the Jianghu. Hand over the treasure map. The Water Moon Great Master stretched out his hand in front of the girl. "You have been tricked by this person. I don't have any treasure map on me. If you don't believe me, you can search for it yourself." After saying that, she puffed out her chest, as if she was wronged. "Okay, let me search." The Water Moon Great Master's eyes flashed with a trace of lust, and directly walked towards the girl. The girl was dumbfounded. She originally thought that the other party was old and had high martial arts, so he would most likely not put down his pride. Who would have thought that the other party would be so shameless? "Bastard, I will kill you." The boy named Su Pu was furious. He waved his fist and rushed forward, but in the blink of an eye, his whole body was kicked to the ground. "Let him go," the girl exclaimed, but she knew the difference in martial arts between them, so she wisely did not rush forward. The Water Moon Great Master stepped on Su Pu and said to the girl, "Is this your lover?" The girl's face turned red. "Don't talk nonsense. I have a girl I love." "Oh, so. It is unrequited love." The Water Moon Great Master had a look of understanding. She pulled out the long sword in her hand and placed it on Su Pu's neck. "Hand over the treasure map, and I will spare his life." The girl bit her lips tightly. It was obvious that she was having a fierce psychological struggle. The Water Moon Great Master couldn't wait any longer. She directly cut open a wound on Su Pu's neck with her sharp long saber. Su Pu didn't let out any sound of pain, but seeing the blood flowing along the long sword to the ground, the girl finally panicked. "No, I will give you the treasure map." As she said that, she quickly took out a map from her pocket. It was obvious that she had carefully kept it. Even though it was a bit old, she had carefully wrapped it with a handkerchief. The Water Moon Great Master took a look, and sure enough, it was a map. He could not help but laugh. His luck was really good. With this legendary treasure, he would not have to suffer at the hands of the Mongolians anymore. "Take off your clothes." The Water Moon Great Master put the treasure map in his pocket, and then looked at the delicate and beautiful girl greedily. How exciting it was to have her in front of her lover. The girl was stunned. She never thought that he would make such a shameless request. Do you still want his life? The Water Moon Great Master took the sword and made a cut on Su Pu's neck. The girl's eyes were filled with tears. You are not trustworthy. Cut the crap. The Water Moon Great Master coldly snorted. When Xiao, don't worry about me. Run by yourself. Su Pu struggled with all his might, but how could his strength compare to the profound martial arts of the Water Moon Great Master? Kid, this has nothing to do with you. The Water Moon Great Master directly kicked his sleeping acupoint, and then looked at the young girl. Don't you like him? But he has a sweetheart, and normally you have no chance at all. But if you make a huge sacrifice for him, as a man, he will definitely feel guilty towards you, and will definitely take responsibility for you. Then, won't you get what you want? Speaking of which, you should thank me. The girl's face turned green, and then white, but before she could say anything, a calm voice suddenly came from beside her. Bullying a junior like this, as a dignified sect leader, you really are getting worse and worse. Chapter 2275. Who is it? Master Shui West suddenly turned around and couldn't help but frown. He had actually seen this person when he arrived, but he didn't know why he had subconsciously ignored this person. It was as if he had forgotten that there was someone else here. When he saw Song Qingshu's face clearly, he felt that it was a bit familiar, but he couldn't remember where he had seen it before. Song Qingshu shook his head and sighed. Master Shui Wei used to be so high-spirited, but now you have to bully some juniors. How embarrassing. Master Shui Wei finally remembered. Song Qingshu, you are the Golden Snake King, Song Qingshu. But he quickly smiled. This has nothing to do with you, so please don't meddle. Back in Xiangyang, he had exchanged blows with Song Qingshu. Because Song Qingshu had just experienced the Battle of Mount Wudong, and his internal energy was greatly damaged. After a short exchange, he felt that it was difficult to live up to his reputation, so he was not afraid. Nothing to do with me. Song Qingshu didn't deny it. He just looked at the girl and asked, Little girl, is your surname Li? The girl blinked, obviously a bit surprised. How do you know? My name is Li Wenxiao. Song Qingshu didn't answer and continued. Is your father Li Shouzhong, the chancellor of Jiangnan Imperial College? Do you have an elder sister called Li Wan who married into the Rongwo residence and became the young mistress? You are from the Rongwo residence? Li Wenxiao was overjoyed. She had been away from her hometown for a long time, and now she couldn't help but feel the joy of meeting an old friend in a foreign land. One should know that her elder sister was a typical lady from a respectable family, and wouldn't casually tell others her name like she did. Since this person knew her elder sister's name, they must be quite familiar with each other. Song Qingshu shook his head. I am not from the Rongwo residence, but I have some connections with them, and I'm also a friend of your elder sister. After pretending to be Jia Baoyu for so long, he naturally had some connections with the people from the Rongwo residence and the Ning residence. Friend? Li Wenxiao had a strange expression. She didn't quite understand this word. One should know that her elder sister was a typical unmarried lady, and wouldn't even talk to men other than her father and husband. How could she have a male friend? However, she didn't believe that her sister would do anything that would hurt the family's reputation, so she didn't think too much about it. So you're a friend of the Golden Snake King. In that case, I'll give the Golden Snake King some face today and let this little girl go. Although the Water Moon sect was not afraid of him, they did not want to provoke such a powerful enemy, especially when they had offended the Mongolians. Since the great sect is being so courteous, I won't make things difficult for you. Return the map to her, and this matter will be settled, Song Qingshu said indifferently. The Shuiwei Great Master was so angry that she laughed. Song, I don't want to cause trouble. I gave you face, but you're asking for a mile after taking an inch. Who do you think you are? Now that he had offended the Mongols, he could only rely on the legendary treasures of the Gaochang Kingdom to live the rest of his life freely. How could he give it up so easily? Song Qingshu sighed. I've never liked to kill people, but you just have to keep courting death. Master Shuiwa laughed coldly. Surnamed Song, have you been blinded by the praises you've received in the Jianghu over the years? Do you really think that you're invincible? It's not like we haven't fought before. I'm not afraid to tell you that if we really fight to the death, you'll definitely die. Song Qingshu's expression was calm. If you didn't mention it, I would have almost forgotten. Last time in Xiangyang, you even offended me. It's a good time to settle old and new grudges. Master Shueiyue tilted his head and said in confusion, "Since you've made such a name for yourself in the Central Plains, I don't think you're stupid. But why are you so arrogant now?" "You think I'm arrogant?" Song Qingshu chuckled. His eyes fell on his shoulder. "Is your shoulder injury healed?" Master Shueyue's heart skipped a beat. He stared at him warily. "How did you know I was injured here?" Song Qingshu slowly stood up. An invisible aura emanated from him. "That sword was stabbed by me. How could I not know?" When he was sitting there, it was as if he had become one with nature. Master Shueiyue had even directly ignored his existence. But when he stood up, it was as if Mount Tai was pressing down on him. He subconsciously took a few steps back. How is that possible? That's Master Bright Sword of Goryo, Fu Kalen. How could it be you? But this aura and feeling were clearly the same as that night. Master Shueiyue immediately recalled the fear of that night. He roared and turned into an afterimage, running away with all his might. He was very confident in his lightness skill. Last time, he had relied on it to escape with his life. Although his opponent's swordsmanship was high, his lightness skill might not be as good as his. Looking at his opponent's distant figure, Song Qingshu sighed. "Last time, my main target was Su Liaowu. That's why I let you escape." When he said the last word, he had already appeared behind Master Shueiyue. He pressed his palm lightly on his back. Master Shueiyue's entire body shook. Then he fell to the ground. Because he had rushed too quickly, he even rolled a few times on the ground due to inertia. A Grandmaster of Dong Ying had died silently at the foot of Chilean Mountain just like that. Actually, with Master Shueyue's martial arts, it would not be so easy for Song Qingshu to kill him in a head-on battle. Unfortunately, the last battle had made him terrified. Now, he only knew to run away with all his might, leaving his back to the enemy. If he was facing other people, it would be fine. With his lightness skill, it would be very difficult for others to catch up to him. But how could he run faster than treading on sand? Seeing Song Qingshu return with Master Shueyue's body, Li Wenxiu's eyes widened in disbelief. "He's dead." She had seen with her own eyes how Master Shueiyue had restrained the three heroes of Lu Yang with just a wave of his hand. His martial arts were like that of a god who had descended to the mortal world. Even her mysterious master was far inferior to him. In the end, such a ghost-like demon had been so easily killed by this young man in front of her. Song Qingshu looked down. "He's dead." At the side, Su Pu's mouth and tongue were dry. He thought of how he had overestimated himself and wanted to steal his things. Fortunately, Li Wenxiu had stopped him. Otherwise, he would have been dead long ago. "You're so powerful." The young girl's eyes were filled with little stars, but it was only admiration. It had nothing to do with love. "But why did you bring his body back?" "It's quite scary." Looking at Master Shueyue's widened eyes in the dark night, it was very creepy. "It's useful." Song Qingshu had been having a headache about how to sneak into the Mongolian camp. In the end, Master Shueyue's appearance gave him the answer. Master Shueyue's status among the Mongolian guests was not low. At the same time, he was born in Dongying, so he was especially eccentric. The guards of his disciples were also dead, so no one would be able to tell the truth. As for the fact that he had run away before, he had a reason to fool them. The young girl and her companion looked at each other. They could not think of any use for the body. Could it be that he wanted to eat it? All kinds of horrifying scenes appeared in their minds. The faces of the couple turned pale. Chapter 2276. Your sister. Song Qingshu thought for a moment. It was not convenient to talk about the things between him and Li Wan. After all, it involved the people of the Jia family who wanted to molest her. It would damage her reputation. "Actually, I am more familiar with your elder sister." "My elder sister?" Li Wenxiu blinked her eyes and did not react for a moment. "Your elder sister was lost when she was young and wandered in Jianghu. Later, She joined the ancient tomb sect and became the Scarlet Serpent Fairy, who made Jianghu tremble with fear. Song Qing-shu could not help but sigh at the good genes of the Li family. The three sisters each had their own characteristics. Li Macho was cold and arrogant, Li Wan was gentle and quiet, and Li Wenxiu was youthful and passionate. Each had their own beauty. Elder sister has been found. Li Wenxiu finally reacted. Ever since I could remember, I often noticed that mother washed her face with tears. Now that elder sister is still alive, she can finally rest assured. I really want to go back to Jiangnan to see elder sister. As she spoke, she subconsciously looked at Su Pu next to her, and a trace of red flashed across her face. I'm afraid your elder sister is not in Jiangnan now. You will see her in the future. Noticing her expression, Song Qing-shu smiled knowingly. As someone who had been through the same thing, how could he not see that she had a great affection for this young man? However, this young man did not seem to have that kind of feeling for her. By the way, I heard from your father and sister that you like to travel around. Have you come to the desert to play? Song Qing-shu asked. I have let Brother Song see a joke. I'm indeed a little playful. My father is probably very angry with me. Li Wenxiu stuck out her tongue. Recently, I have been in the area of the Taiyan tribe. The people of the Taiyan tribe are very hospitable. Brother Song, do you want to go and play with us? On the side, Su Pu frowned slightly. He subconsciously hated Han people and naturally did not want her to go. However, he was not stupid. The other party's martial arts were so high. Why would he say that he did not welcome her? Song Qing-shu shook his head. I still have important things to do, so I will not go this time. By the way, what is this map of the Gaochang maze? Li Wenxiu replied, a few days ago, when I was traveling in the northwest, I met a couple, White Horse Li San and Gold and Silver Sword Shang Wanhong. Later, after talking, I found out that they are from a side branch of our Li family. They could be counted as my uncles. One time, they coincidentally obtained this map. Legend has it that it records the treasure of the Gaochang ancient country. On the side, Su Pu hurriedly said, Gaochang country has perished for hundreds of years. And even in tribes, the tribe. Shangwan Hong tribe, Song Qing-shu smiled. He knew that Li Wenxiu was worried that he would take the treasure map for himself. Li Wenxiu continued. Later, the three heroes of Lu Liang somehow found out about this. Although they're called the three heroes, they're actually three bandits. They chased after Li San and his wife all the way. Although they killed Shi Zhongjuan of the three heroes, they were still outnumbered and were severely injured by the other two, Hui Yuan Long and Chen Dahai. Before they died, they happened to meet me and gave me the treasure map, instructing me not to let the treasure map fall into the hands of those traitors. So, Hui Yuan Long and Chen Dahai sent people to chase after me. Recently, Chen Dahai and his men caught up to us. I thought I would definitely die, but we met that Japanese warrior just now. When he fought with Chen Dahai and his men, we took the opportunity to escape. Fortunately, we met Brother Song. Otherwise, how could we be a match for that Japanese? As he spoke, he patted his chest in fear. So that's how it is. Song Qing-shu came to a realization. He casually tossed the treasure map to Li Wenxiu. Li Wenxiu subconsciously stretched out her hand and caught the treasure map. She couldn't help but exclaim, Brother Song, your martial arts are really good. You should be the best person I've ever seen in my life. Song Qing-shu smiled. There's always someone better than you out there. Brother Song, you're so humble even though your martial arts are so high. You're not like those men I know who would go around bragging whenever they have a little bit of ability, as if they're afraid that others don't know how strong they are. Li Wenxiu sighed. Su Pu's face heated up. He was the son of the tribe's #1 warrior. He was usually proud of his bravery, but he didn't know that he was still a far cry from a real expert. By the way, Brother Song, I'll leave this thing to you. We'll only get into trouble if we keep it. You're so good at martial arts, so I'm sure no one will dare to rob you. Li Wenxiu said as she handed over the treasure map in her hand. Song Qing-shu shook his head. This was given to you by Li San and his wife before they died. How can I take it? Keep it well. The three heroes of Lu Liang won't dare to do anything when we arrive at the Taiyin tribe. Just remember not to leak the news. He wasn't a pedantic person. If there really was a treasure, there was no reason for him not to accept it. After all, the army's pay and provisions were a bottomless pit. However, as far as he knew, the treasure of the Gaochang kingdom seemed to be things like paper, ink, brush, inkstone, and zither sent over during the Tang dynasty. They were naturally treasures to the Gaochang kingdom at that time, but they were meaningless to the people of the Central Plains. However, after hundreds of years of rumors, everyone thought that there was a mysterious treasure in the Gaochang maze. In that case, I'll keep it well. Li Wenxiu hesitated for a moment and put the treasure map back into her clothes. Without the pursuers, they didn't have to leave in a hurry. They planned to spend the night here. Because Song Qingshu was familiar with the Li family, the relationship between the two sides became closer. Li Wenxiu asked him about the recent events in Jiangnan, as well as many legends about Li Macho. Song Qingshu answered them one by one, and also asked about some information about the grassland. Although Su Pu didn't like the Han people, he was saved by him and saw that he didn't covet the treasure map. His opinion of him changed a lot, and he tried his best to answer all the questions. Song Qingshu learned a lot about the customs of the grassland tribes, especially about Mongolia, which was very helpful for his next action. They chatted until midnight and went to sleep. The next morning, Li Wenxiu and the others said goodbye to Song Qingshu. The Taiyin tribe was in the west, and the Mongolians were in the north. Before they left, Song Qingshu gave them some food and money and told them to buy horses from the herdsmen nearby. Li Wenxiu was very touched, and even Su Pu kept thanking him. After they left, Song Qingshu went to the corpse of the Shuiyue great master and took off his clothes. He found some personal belongings in his bag. The most valuable thing on his body was probably the Shuiyue saber. It had a cold aura and was indeed a precious saber that could cut through iron like mud. Then he used the corpse powder of the White Camel Mountain village to turn the corpse into a pool of blood. This way, no one would know that he was pretending to be him. After doing all this, Song Qingshu continued on his way. He decided to catch up with Su Liu first, and then follow his team back to Helen. Otherwise, it would be very troublesome to be questioned by the Mongolian troops along the way. After chasing north for another 2 days, he finally found traces of them. However, Song Qingshu wasn't in a hurry to follow, because he found that there was a group of people watching Su Liu's team from the surroundings. Chapter 2277. At this time, Su Liu's team had also noticed that something was wrong. Red Beauty Huajiu looked into the distance and said to Su Liu worriedly, "My lord, there seem to be a few suspicious figures around these past 2 days. They most likely have ill intentions towards us." Although Red Beauty and White Hair were husband and wife, the two of them had their own lives. Her husband, Lu Shaoji, had died silently at the hands of the old man in the mountain. She did not know who the murderer was, and after a short period of grief, she had already recovered. Beside her, Heaven Destroyer laughed and said, "Protector Hua, you worry too much. Who on this grassland would dare to attack our lord?" Of the 10 fiends of the Demon Palace, the 8 of them, metal, wood, water, fire, earth, moon, and star, had all died in Xingqing Prefecture. They had either been killed by Fu Kalen from Goryeo, or they had been injured by a mysterious person when they were dealing with Madame Jeanne from Crazimo. Only the eldest and second eldest were left, Heaven Destroyer and Earth Destroyer. However, the 2 of them were far more skilled than the other 8. Given time, they would be able to train another 8 fiends. Now that he had returned to the grassland and left Xingqing Prefecture, that place of nightmares that he did not want to recall, he was naturally in a much better mood. Beside him, Earth Destroyer and the others also laughed. Clearly, they did not think that anyone would dare to pull the tiger's teeth. However, Su Liu frowned slightly. "We cannot be careless. Why haven't the scouts we sent before returned?" After all, he was a famous general on the battlefield. A famous general's sense of smell told him that there was some danger. He immediately sent a few guards in all directions to investigate. However, The guards had not gone far when a few arrows were suddenly shot at them, and a few of them fell to the ground. Enemy attack! A Mongolian warrior shouted with all his might. A group of warriors gathered in front of Su Liuwu. Huajiu and Heaven Destroyer stood on his left and right. As for the old man in the mountain and his subordinates, they were a distance away from him. It was obvious that Su Liuwu did not trust him. He was also very tactful and did not approach him at such a sensitive time. "What are you all surrounding me for? Hurry up and fight." By now, Su Liuwu had already seen clearly that a group of horse bandits had appeared nearby. There were close to 200 of them. Although this was not a small number, they were all experienced knights and did not fear these horse bandits at all. The generals under Su Liuwu's command had long since led their men to flank the mounted bandits and outflank them from behind. While they galloped forward, they also used archery to kill their enemies. Song Qing-shu, who was watching from afar, felt his heart tremble. It was no wonder that the Mongolians had dominated the world for so many years. Regardless of whether it was their individual fighting power or the efficiency of their organization, they were far superior to the armies of other countries. However, the group of horse bandits did not want to fall behind. They all drew their bows and arrows, using mounted archery against mounted archery. In addition, they also used an extremely ingenious formation to penetrate Su Liuwu's camp. "Your Highness, these are not ordinary mounted bandits," Heaven Destroyer said to Su Liuwu hurriedly. Su Liuwu nodded his head. Even though all the tribes on the grassland basically had the skills of riding and archery, only the most elite troops would be able to display such strict tactics. Just where did this group of people come from? "Huashan, go and lend them a hand," Su Liuwu ordered. The pupils of the old man in the mountain shrank. The people of the assassin sect were experts in assassination, but not in frontal assaults. Su Liuwu's order clearly showed that he wanted both his men and the mounted bandits to suffer heavy losses. However, he had no choice but to lower his head when he was under someone else's roof. He quickly lowered his head and hid his true emotions. Yes. Thus, he led his subordinate, the precious Tree King, and charged into the battlefield. After all, he was a super expert who was half a step into the Grandmaster realm. Even though he was not good at frontal assaults, in a small-scale battle like this, his martial prowess could still play a decisive role. The formation of the mounted bandits gradually loosened. They could no longer withstand the repeated attacks of Su Liuwu's subordinates. The leader of the bandits let out a cry and hurriedly gathered his subordinates to flee towards the north. Love 999 inch, it's the remnants of the Tatar tribe. Heaven Destroyer Earth exclaimed at the same time. They recognized the other party's accent. It was the language of the Tatar tribe. The Tatar tribe was once the strongest tribe in the Mongolian plains. However, Temujin rose to power, and after more than 10 years of war, he finally replaced them. Now, even Temujin's young wife, Empress Shinran, had been snatched from the Tatar tribe, because Temujin had once issued an order to the Tatar tribe, kill all those taller than a chariot. The people of the Tatar tribe were almost wiped out. A small number of survivors hid deep in the mountains and forests. It could be said that they had a blood feud with the Mongolians. How can the Tatar tribe still maintain this kind of fighting strength? Su Liuwu's brows furrowed. It must be known that the Mongolians had carried out great purges on the Tatar tribe from time to time. It was basically impossible for the Tatar tribe to find any adult males. How could they still gather such a powerful army? Huashan, capture all of them. This king wants to know who the mastermind is, Su Liuwu ordered. The old man in the mountain nodded and led the cavalry under his command to chase after the other party. Who is it that wants to make a move against me? Who has the strength to do so? Su Liuwu thought hard, going through all the possible enemies in his mind. Suddenly, a thought flashed through his mind, and he thought of a possibility. His expression immediately changed. Come back, get them all back. But the old man in the mountain had already disappeared with the two groups of cavalry. There was no way he could catch up. At this moment, a black line suddenly appeared in the west. Su Liuwu's heart instantly turned cold. As someone who had been on the battlefield for a long time, How could he not know what this black line meant? A group of at least 300 cavalry was charging in this direction. Hurry, protect the king, and leave. Extinguisher of Heavens and Earth's expression also changed greatly. He hurriedly ordered his subordinates to protect Su Liuwu and leave. Right now, there were only a few dozen cavalry left. How could they block the charge of 300 cavalry? We can't run. Scatter to the sides. Su Liuwu still maintained his calm. If he had not been injured, he could have ridden his horse and fled while turning back to stop his pursuers. Of course, it was not wise to stay where he was to face the other party's charge head-on. The other party's momentum had already been set. If he stayed where he was, he would die even faster. Thus, although he did not panic, he could at least hold on for a while longer. When his main force returned, he would be able to turn defeat into victory. In the distance, Song Qingshu secretly nodded as he watched. No wonder Su Liuwu was called the second whip of God by the Westerners. He really had a way of commanding an army. However, no matter how good his commanding skills were, in the face of an absolute disparity in strength, there was not much meaning. The two sides quickly exchanged blows. Because of the disadvantage in numbers, Su Liuwu's guards fell one after another. Su Liuwu's expression was gloomy. Those who could serve as his guards were all warriors picked out of 100 in the army. Even if they were outnumbered, they should not have died so quickly. It was obvious that the cavalry in front of him was also the elite of the elite. Not long after, there were not many guards left beside him. If it were not for Extinguisher of Heavens and Hua Jiyu's powerful martial arts, he would probably have died on the spot. However, there was no lack of experts in the enemy's army. Very soon, Extinguisher of Heavens and Hua Jiyu were covered in wounds. Chapter 2278. A new troop of cavalry suddenly appeared at the end of the grassy plains. Even though they were 2 to 3 li away, with the speed of the cavalry, they arrived in almost an instant. Song Qingshu had originally thought that these people had come to kill Su Liuwu, and thought to himself, just what kind of anger did he have for so many people to want to kill him? But when these cavalry got close, they shot at the mounted gangsters. This troop of cavalry had 1 to 2,000 people, and the arrows fell like rain. The group of mounted gangsters were shot down in almost an instant. The leader of this troop of cavalry was a female general. She had a pretty face, a well-proportioned and slender figure, and there was a valiant air between her brows. Her red cape fluttered in the wind, and she was like a beautiful flame on the battlefield. Song Qingshu felt a headache coming on. The Mongolians' archery skills on horseback were too powerful. Before they had even begun to fight, they had already launched several volleys of arrows from afar. They were also very mobile, and with just a few thrusts, they could scatter the enemy camp. Even when they were fleeing, they could shoot behind them. If the pursuers were not careful, they could easily turn victory into defeat. Most importantly, even a woman on the Mongolian side was so skilled on horseback. It was as if the entire population was a soldier. How would they face them in the future? The appearance of this troop of cavalry had already determined the fate of the mounted gangsters. Originally, if they had run in time, they might have been able to escape, but those people only hesitated for a short moment before continuing to attack Su Liuwu and the others, trying to kill him before the enemy's reinforcements arrived. But Su Liuwu's guards were all experts. Now that reinforcements had appeared, they all became spirited and released 120% of their battle strength. Even though their numbers were decreasing, they still stubbornly persisted. "How dare you?" The female general who had rushed over shouted, drawing her bow and shooting an arrow at the shoulder of the leader of the mounted gangsters. She then pulled out her curved blade and led the cavalry under her command to charge over like a bolt of lightning. The group of mounted gangsters finally fell into chaos. Previously, they had been outnumbered, and now the tables had turned. They could also feel the despair of Su Liuwu's group. The female general charged to Su Liuwu's side and did not attack. She only arranged guards to protect Su Liuwu like an iron wall, while commanding the cavalry to cut off the group of mounted gangsters. Even though the mounted gangsters were very brave, In front of an enemy many times their number, they still fell one after another. In the end, only a few dozen people were left in the center. Who sent you? Why have you come to assassinate Su Yiwu? The female general urged her horse forward and looked coldly at the crowd. Her subordinates all drew their bows and faced the formation. As long as they gave the order, the enemies on the field would be pierced by 10,000 arrows. Those horse gang looked at each other and saw the determination in their companions' eyes. They gathered their machetes and slit their throats at the same time. The blood spurting out formed a sad but beautiful picture. Song Qing-shu, who had been watching coldly from the sidelines, could not help but be moved. The brutality and determination of these people left a deep impression on him. Presumably, they did not want to become captives and reveal the identity of the mastermind. In the past, Liu Bang defeated Xiang Yu and summoned the king of Qi, Tian Heng, to surrender. Tian Heng did not want to become a prisoner and committed suicide. When the 500 warriors under his command learned that their master was dead, they all committed suicide and followed him. He had only read about this story in books, but he did not expect to see something similar today. He could not help but admire these people. He committed suicide? The female general frowned and immediately ordered, "Search these people's corpses and see if you can find any clues. Also, cut off their heads and bring them back to Yilin. I don't believe that no one will recognize them." Song Qing-shu secretly clicked his tongue. This woman was really cruel and merciless. He did not know who she was. Su Yiwu let the carriage move closer. If fourth sister-in-law had not appeared in time, I'm afraid I would have died in the hands of these bandits. The female general's face no longer had the ruthlessness from before. Instead, it was replaced by a gentle smile. Your fourth brother heard that something happened to you in the Western Xia. He was worried that someone might have bad intentions, so he sent me with 2,000 men to rescue you. I didn't expect that someone would really eat the courage of a leopard. Fourth sister-in-law, hearing their conversation, Song Qing-shu's heart skipped a beat. It seemed that this was not a female general, but Kublai's chubby consort. No wonder she had just called Su Liuwu by his name. When she commanded, she had the air of a superior. Consort Chabi continued, "I don't know who dared to make a move against you." Su Liuwu snorted. Just now, those people were pretending to be Tatar people, but how could the Tatar people have the ability to organize such a large group of cavalry? Clearly, someone planned to impersonate Tatar people to surround and kill me. Have you guessed the culprit behind this? Consort Chabi asked. Su Yiwu looked in the direction of Yilin. Most likely, at this moment, something strange happened. The originally flat grassland suddenly exploded. A black shadow shot out from the ground, and the carriage was instantly blasted into pieces by the sword Qi. Su Yiwu was a grandmaster-level expert. Even though he was seriously injured, he could still press his hands together and dodge 3 feet to the side. However, he did not dare to relax at all, because what entered his eyes was a dot of sword light, like maggots in his bones. He was already seriously injured, and dodging 3 feet in the nick of time had already used up all of his strength. How could he dodge the next sword attack? Fortunately, he had Consort Chabi by his side. With a shake of the whip in her hand, she wrapped it around Su Liuwu's waist and pulled him behind her. This also gave the guards beside her a chance to react. They all drew their weapons and stood in front of the assassin. However, that dot of sword light seemed to flash with a demonic light. Everyone could only see that dot of sword light, but they could not see the person wielding the sword clearly. In the time it took for their eyes to blur, a few guards were already splattered with blood. Hua Jiu and annihilating heavens and earth roared angrily and pounced forward. Even though their martial arts were not weak, the battle with the horse bandits had been too cruel. All of them had suffered serious injuries, and their martial arts had been greatly reduced. They had been seriously injured by the other party's sword light in almost an instant. The only thing worth rejoicing about was that their martial arts were higher than the average guards, and they had managed to keep their lives. However, they were no longer able to stop the assassin's movements. Consort Chabi had just pulled Su Liuwu behind her, and before she could retract the whip in her hand, the mysterious assassin had already killed her guards and severely injured Hua Jiu and annihilating heavens and earth. A dot of cold light directly pierced toward her chest. It was obvious that the other party was also worried that he would be held back and be surrounded by the army. So he planned to pierce through her body and kill Su Yewu, who was behind her. She wanted to draw her curved blade to block, but the fear of death and the other party's chi activity locking on her caused her entire body to stiffen. Her movements were much slower than usual, so how could she block this sure-kill sword attack? At that moment, she suddenly felt someone grab her waist and pull her behind him. Then, a tall figure stood in front of her, and a cold light was unsheathed, clashing with the dazzling cold light in the assassin's hand. With a muffled grunt, the assassin retreated at a speed even faster than when he had come. With a few leaps, he had already appeared a mile away. Chapter 2279. Receiving her order, a group of cavalry shot out like arrows, chasing in the direction the assassin had fled in. Song Qingshu looked at the figure gradually disappearing into the distance. He thought to himself that he had not injured him in the attack just now. Instead, he had used the force of the attack to push him further away. He hoped that he would be able to escape. Coming to assassinate Su Yewu meant that they had a common enemy. The enemy of an enemy was a friend. He naturally did not wish for the other to be captured. This time, he had saved Su Yewu mainly because he wanted to use this opportunity to hide beside Su Yewu as a member of the Shuiwei Great Sect. This way, it would be easier for him to sneak into Helen City. Previously, the Shuiwei Great Sect had fled at the last moment. If he wanted to return, he should at least send a greeting gift. As for Su Yewu's life, he was now a cripple. Both his legs had been shattered, and adding on the gunpowder wounds on his body, even if he recovered, he would be half crippled. Also, it would not be difficult to take his life. This time, he had witnessed such a large-scale encirclement. It must have come from within Mongolia. Before he understood everything and determined how to develop the situation to his advantage. How could he let Su Yewu die so easily? Dog slave, let go of your filthy hands. Just as his mind was spinning, he suddenly heard a cold and angry voice. Turning his head to look, he saw Chabi Wang Fei glaring at him angrily. Only then did Song Qingshu realize that he was still holding her waist. Hearing the other scolding, he frowned and said indifferently, "Just now, I offended you in a moment of desperation. Please forgive me, Wang Fei." Chabi Wang Fei was just about to say something when she saw Su Yewu being supported over. She snorted, tidied her clothes, and moved to the side. "Shuiwei Great Sect, you still dare to come back to see this king?" Su Yewu looked at Song Qingshu and gritted his teeth. That time, if he had not run away, he probably would not have suffered the humiliation of having his legs broken. Song Qingshu replied, "That night, when I faced Fu Kalen of Goryeo, I really didn't expect his martial arts to be that high. I was so shocked that I subconsciously left. After that, I regretted it a lot. Unfortunately, I didn't have the face to come back to see your highness, so I could only follow you from afar. In the end, I saw that mysterious assassin wanted to assassinate your highness and the fourth princess." Su Yewu was enraged when he saw Yi Futian vaguely pointing out the credit for saving him. Just as he was about to lash out, he suddenly saw the old man of the mountain leading his troops back from afar. He immediately realized that all the masters around him were either dead or injured. Now, the destructive sky, decimating earth, and Hua Jiu were both severely injured. Even if they were not injured, they would still be no match for the old man of the mountain. Keeping such a person with ulterior motives by his side, without any checks and balances, was truly dangerous. Therefore, he immediately said with a pleasant expression, that night, even if the great master had stayed, he would have lost his life in vain. The great master preserved his strength and saved me and sister-in-law at the critical moment. His merits outweigh his faults. When I return to Heilin, I will definitely reward you greatly." Song Qingshu pretended to be grateful. "Thank you, Your Highness, for forgiving the past." At the same time, he glanced around. The Wind Lady was indeed not in the group, which saved him a lot of trouble. The Shueihue Great Master had always been a loner, and he had come from foreign land. The only people who were truly familiar with him were the elements under his command. The others were all dead, and the only survivor, the Wind Lady, was not around. The possibility of him being exposed was very low. Although the art of disguise was amazing, after a long period of time, it was impossible to hide it from the people closest to him. Therefore, whether he had pretended to be Kangxi or Tang Quobian, the situation had basically been set. On the other hand, he was not familiar with the Mongolians, and his influence was basically zero. If he had impersonated someone else, it would have been very easy for him to be exposed. Otherwise, why would he have bothered to impersonate a Dong-ing devil? Wouldn't it be better to impersonate Su Liuwu, or even impersonate Temujin? At this moment, Su Liuwu had no time to pay attention to him. Instead, he looked at Huashan and the others with a strange expression. When he returned, he asked, "Did you catch up with those horse bandits?" Huashan shook his head. Those horse bandits were too cunning. They set up many traps along the way to stop us. Later, they ran into a forest and instantly broke up. We searched for a while, but did not find anything useful, so we had to come back. Did something happen to your Highness? Su Liuwu had an expression as if he had expected this. Earlier, it was the horse bandits' plan to lure me away from the mountain. Fortunately, fourth sister-in-law rushed over with her troops. Otherwise, I would have been finished. Huashan hurriedly bowed to Consort Chabi. "Greetings, fourth consort. It's all because of your subordinate's carelessness that your Highness is in danger." Su Liuwu helped him up. "The enemy is too cunning. It's not your fault." Although he said this, his heart was as clear as a mirror. He had led the army to pacify the Persian Ming dynasty. Huashan had been forced to surrender to him. How could he sincerely work for him? He would definitely betray them as soon as he had the chance. Previously, he had stayed at Xingqing Manor for a long time. This time, he took the guards with him. He probably wanted to kill him with a borrowed knife. Although he understood all this, he did not feel offended. Growing up in the Huangjing clan, he had an exceptional confidence. Although he clearly knew that Huashan had ulterior motives, he did not want to kill him because of his exceptional martial arts. He was confident that he could completely control this dangerous blade. Consort Chabi, who was at the side, said, "Sixth brother, your side has suffered heavy casualties. Set up a camp nearby and take a good rest." Su Liuwu did not refuse. In order to protect him, 90% of the guards he had left by his side had died. No matter if it was compensation or rewards, they needed to settle down first. After instructing her subordinates to set up the tent, Consort Chabi and Su Liuwu hid to the side and discussed in detail. That assassin's movements seemed a bit familiar. Su Liuwu nodded. "It does seem like the shadow assassin, Yang Xuyan." Consort Chabi bit her lip and revealed a puzzled expression. "But didn't Butian Pavilion's people rely on Mother and Big Brother? Why would they try to assassinate you? Could it be?" Su Liuwu shook his head. "I definitely do not believe that Mother would make a move against me. But Big Brother died in an accident a few years ago. Who would be able to command him?" Song Qing-shu, who was far away, opened his eyes. He circulated his internal energy, and no sound could escape his ears. Hearing the conversation between the two of them, he had a vague idea of who they were talking about. The mother they were talking about should be Taoyui's wife, Tilihatini. She had given birth to Brother Meng, Kublai, Suliwu, and Brother Alabuch. Brother Meng must be the big brother. When he arrived in this world, he found out that Brother Meng had died in battle. At that time, he thought that it was the condor who killed him in the plot. Only after meeting Yang did he realize that his death had nothing to do with the condor hero in the original novel. However, how could there be the shadow assassin, Yang Xuyan, in this world? Song Qing-shu had a strange expression on his face. Even the Fu sisters from Goryeo existed, so it was not strange for him to exist. It seemed like the experts of the Devil sect had all been hiding in the desert all these years, and were in cahoots with the Mongolians. It was no wonder that there was rarely any news about them in the martial world of the Central Plains. At this moment, in a valley dozens of kilometers away, the group of mounted bandits that had fled at the beginning were all kneeling in front of a graceful woman. The woman's skin was made even more white and exquisite by the date-red horse she was riding. Her eyes were as beautiful and moving as the ocean. Even though she was more beautiful than a flower, none of the valiant mounted bandits dared to look directly at her. "You failed?" The beautiful woman's pleasant voice carried a trace of laziness. At the same time, it revealed a deep sense of regret. "Consort, if it were not for that bastard Chabi suddenly appearing with 2,000 men, we would have already beheaded Su Liawu to avenge the first and second prince," the leader of the mounted bandits said hatefully. "Where is Yang Shuyan?" the beautiful woman asked with a frown. He had almost killed both Su Liawu and Consort Chabi. In the end, the Water Moon sect suddenly rushed over and saved them. The leader of the mounted bandits answered. Chapter 2280. I heard that Shuaiwe Great Master had escaped from Xingqing Prefecture. I thought that he had already betrayed Su Liawu, but I didn't expect him to suddenly appear. Could it be that Su Liawu had purposely injured himself to gain his confidence? Asked the leader of the horse bandits. The beautiful woman shook her head. No way. How could someone like Su Liawu use his 2 legs as the price to set up such a trick? He must have regretted his decision after escaping from the Water Moon Great Sect. He wanted to return to Su Liawu's side and happened to run into this. The leader said in a low voice, "The Water Moon Great Master's martial arts are top-notch. It will not be easy to get rid of him. On our side, unless the evil emperor personally acts, I am afraid no one is a match for him." The beautiful woman shook her head. Xiang Yutian's identity is sensitive, and we cannot touch him easily. Furthermore, there is no need to use a blade to kill. I don't believe that Su Liawu does not hold a grudge against him for running away. Her eyes flashed, and it was clear that she already had an idea. The leader continued asking, "Yang Shuyan is being hunted down. Should we go and help him?" The beautiful woman snorted coldly. "What if we get caught by Su Liawu and Cha Bai subordinates? We don't have to worry about this anymore. We'll leave immediately. We mustn't leave behind any evidence." The leader said hesitantly, "But Yang Shuyan is a rare talent, and he's also, loyal to the princess. It will be a pity if we lose him." The beautiful woman's expression was indifferent. "Don't worry. If the heaven-mending pavilion's descendant can't even protect himself, how could he be the #1 assassin under the heavens?" After saying that, he put on his cloak again and called for his subordinates to disappear into the wilderness. At this time, on the other side, Chabi Wang Fei and Su Liawu were already discussing this matter in the tent. "I definitely do not believe that the people on Mother Consort and Big Brother's side would act against you. There should be another mastermind behind this." Su Liawu nodded. "That's right. Actually, I have guessed that there are 2 people. One of them is Brother Ali Bu. He is fighting for the throne with 4th brother, and I have always been on good terms with 4th brother. Naturally, he sees me as a thorn in his side. However, he probably doesn't have the courage to directly use the army to surround and kill me. 6th brother's words are indeed possible. Chabi Wang Fei clearly knew that the fight between Brother Alabuge and her husband had reached a climax. Then who is the other suspect?" Su Liawu looked towards the north and revealed a complicated expression. "The sea is lost." Song Qing-shu, who was eavesdropping not far away, was taken aback. "Who is this Hai Wanli?" He hurriedly continued listening. "Lost in the sea." Chabi Wang Fei's eyes were also a little strange. This woman had you brother's head over heels for her back then. Song Qing-shu smiled and thought that women were indeed full of jealousy. Even after so many years, they still couldn't forget it. Su Liawu's face turned red, and he snorted coldly. Unfortunately, she still chose to marry that short-lived Guiyu in the end. Back then, Guiyu was the crown prince's grandson. It was expected that Hai Wansheng would choose him. Chabi Wang Fei's mouth curved slightly to show a trace of disdain. But she did not expect the tables to turn. In the end, the right of succession shifted to our line. That's right. When the great Khan appointed Kuowatai as the crown prince, Kuowatai feared Imperial Father's prestige and plotted to assassinate Imperial Father. Imperial Mother endured the humiliation and pretended not to know and continued to maintain good relations with Kuowatai. At the same time, she secretly established a shadow government. In the end, she gave them a taste of their own medicine and got rid of Kuowatai and Guiyu, successfully obtaining the position of heir. A trace of joy flashed across Su Lai Wu's face. Song Qing-shu was shocked when he heard this. When he came to this world, he found that the death rate of the Mongol kings was very high. The second-generation princes like Joki, Chagatai, Kuowatai, and Touré were almost all killed. Only the third-generation princes of the Touré line, Monk, Kublai, Su Lai Wu, and Ali Bugu were active on the stage. At first, he had thought that it was because the wars were too intense and many people died. Now that he heard them say this, it seemed that there was more to it than meets the eye. Kuowatai was very fond of alcohol. One time, he drank too much on an expedition and died. Guiyu was Kuowatai's eldest son. His health had not been good since he was young, and he also liked to drink. Later, he died in a military camp during a Western expedition. He had thought that their deaths were accidents, but now it seemed that someone had murdered them. Kuowatai has always been suspicious of her husband's death. Most of the remaining forces of the Kuowatai line are the same. Even though I have my suspicions about Big Brother's death, I can't be sure. Today, they're actually planning to surround and kill me. It seems that Kuowatai and the others have already made their move. Su Lai Wu's face was very pale. Sister-in-law also told fourth brother to be careful. Song Qing-shu, who was hiding at the side, brightened. Kuowatai, the princess who wanted to take revenge for her husband, the grudge between the Kuowatai line and the Touré line. He suddenly had more confidence in this trip to Mongolia. Chabi Wang, Fei hurriedly nodded. I will immediately write a letter to remind him. That's right. After we return to Helen, we will report this matter to the Great Khan. With six brothers' current position and power, if they send people to attack you, the Great Khan will not let them go. Absolutely not. Su Lai Wu immediately shook his head. Why? Chabi Wang Fei asked in confusion. Su Lai Wu answered, We do not have any evidence. Only then did Chabi Wang Fei come to her senses. Those who had participated in the attack had all committed suicide, leaving no one alive. As for taking their heads to Helen, with Kuowatai's meticulousness, these people were most likely death warriors without any ties. It would be very difficult to trace it back to her. Also, even if we have evidence, it is useless. Su Lai Wu suddenly sighed. Chabi Wang Fei frowned slightly. She really did not understand. However, she knew that this sixth brother of hers was very shrewd and would not speak without thinking. Back then, Kuowatai tried to assassinate royal father. Sister-in-law, do you think that the Great Khan does not know? Su Lai Wu asked. Even after mother established the shadow government and got rid of Kuowatai and Guiyu, I think that the Great Khan most likely knows. Chabi Wang Fei was shocked. With the Great Khan's great talent and strategy, it is indeed very difficult to hide it from him. But why is he not asked about it? It seems that he has tacitly allowed the sons under his command to fight. Su Lai Wu's brows were tightly knitted together. This is also something that I have never understood. There are similar examples in the Han dynasties. In order to ensure that the throne is not threatened, the emperor will tacitly allow the princes and princes to fight. That way, he will be able to sit in a stable position. But with the Great Khan's prestige and martial arts, who can threaten his position? How could he be like those Han emperors and play such tricks? In recent years, the Great Khan has become more and more unfathomable. It is likely that no one in the world will be able to guess his thoughts. Wang Fei Wu also had a worried expression. Song Qing-shu listened for a while longer. The two of them quickly chatted about daily life. The Mongolians were not like the Han, so there was no need to avoid suspicion between uncle and sister-in-law. Seeing that he could not hear anything more, he returned to his own tent. Chapter 2281. Song Qing-shu didn't stay in the tent for long before a guard came to report. The consort of the Shui clan wants to see you. See me? Why would she want to see me? Song Qing-shu was confused and couldn't help but worry. Could it be that consort Chabi knew the Shui clan? If that happened, he would be in trouble. The guard said impatiently, "We don't dare to guess what the consort is thinking. Just hurry up and go." Song Qing-shu hesitated for a moment, then picked up the Shui knife and followed the guard to consort Chabi's tent. "You can't bring weapons to see the consort." The guard stopped him at the door. Song Qing-shu raised an eyebrow and said coldly, "My knife never leaves my body." Why did she want to remove his weapon? Was she planning to ambush the executioner? But according to his senses, there was no ambush in the tent. "Let him in." Consort Chabi's voice came from inside the tent. The guard at the door didn't stop him. When Song Qing-shu entered, he found that the guard from before didn't follow him in. There was no one else in the tent either. Suliwa must have returned to his own tent. Consort Chabi sat high up on a chair. Her small boots stepped on the animal skin beneath her feet, making her legs look even more slender. Song Qing-shu thought to himself, it's rare that she doesn't have O-shaped legs after riding for so long. But then he thought about it. Kublai was one of the noblest princes in the Mongolian Empire. His consort must be beautiful, not like a normal grassland woman. Noticing his gaze, Consort Chabi felt uncomfortable and said angrily, "Why don't you kneel when you see me?" As she spoke, she took the whip from her waist and whipped it at his face. Song Qing-shu frowned and used his fingers to catch the tip of her whip. "I am a guest of the Khan. The Khan has given us special permission not to kneel." Although he wasn't sure if the Khan had actually given such an order, he had seen the behavior of Master Shuiwe, Jinluan Fuwang, and the others. Although they respected their masters, they were not servile in the slightest. It seemed that Temujin knew that these masters were proud and arrogant, so he purposely waived some of the rules. Moreover, even without this order, Temujin was not here. Would Princess Chabi still be able to go and verify it? Did the Great Khan give such an order? Princess Chabi was also uncertain, but her tone still softened. "The next time I see you looking around with those thieving eyes of yours, I will punish you for offending this princess." Song Qing-shu smiled faintly and said, "Wang Fei is willing to use her reputation as a wager. Even if I am punished, it is not wrong." Chabi Consort's face darkened. "How dare you speak to me like that?" Song Qing-shu replied, "Wang Fei is quite daring. She dares to be alone in a room with me and to be so aggressive." Chabi was shocked and instinctively shrank back. Just as she was about to call for the guards outside, she immediately reacted, "I don't believe that you would really dare to be rude to me." Seeing her proudly puffing out her chest, Song Qing-shu subconsciously wanted to tease her, but in the end, he dispelled this tempting idea. After all, teasing a handsome man would have a miraculous effect. Now that he was wearing the face of the Water Moon Great Sect, he was afraid that it would only thoroughly anger this woman. Seeing that he no longer contradicted her, Consort Chabi finally smiled. "I knew it. You clearly abandoned Sixth Brother in Xingqing Prefecture and ran away, but now you come back shamelessly. You must have a strong desire for wealth and glory. How would you dare to offend me?" Song Qing-shu sighed. "Did Wang Fei summon me here just to deliberately humiliate me?" Consort Chabi did not answer and stared at the whip between his fingers. "Let go." Song Qing-shu flicked his finger lightly, and the long whip immediately curled back into a ball and hung back on her waist. Consort Chabi raised an eyebrow. "Your martial arts are so good. I'm very curious to know how good that Fu Kalen from Goryeo is. How could he scare you into running away?" Song Qing-shu said lightly, "If Wang Fei wants to know, you can ask Sixth Wang Ye." Consort Chabi's eyes narrowed. If a servant does not have the self-awareness of being a servant, it will be difficult for him to die a good death. Feeling her arrogant attitude, Song Qing-shu frowned. "If Wang Fei has no other instructions, I will leave first." Finishing, he turned to leave. He did not have the time to waste with this woman. In any case, Shuiwe sect had always been eccentric, which suited his personality. "Wait!" Seeing that he was about to leave, Chabi hurriedly stood up and called out. Song Qingshu turned his head in confusion. Chabi's face was slightly red. He pretended to look out the window and said in a small voice, "You do not need to tell anyone that you touched me when you saved me. If I hear any rumors, I will immediately send someone to kill you." "Don't worry, I don't want to get into trouble." Song Qingshu walked to the door and stopped, a trace of ridicule appearing at the corner of his mouth, very soft. Finishing, he left, leaving behind a stunned Chabi. After a long time, Chabi finally reacted. He was both embarrassed and angry. "This damn Dong Yinghua, I will kill you one day." Not long after Song Qingshu returned, Su Lai Wu summoned him again. However, it was nothing more than some comforting and some rewards. He did not mind. Instead, he was happy that he had successfully infiltrated Su Lai Wu's group and did not arouse anyone's suspicions. It was already late that day. The Mongolians were resting in their tents. Of course, because of the previous attack, Su Lai Wu and Chabi still arranged for a large number of spies to be on guard. Song Qingshu naturally did not need to worry about such things. Shui sect had a high status in the Mongolian army. They had their own tents to stay in. He could rest in peace. The few days of nonstop travel had really tired him. In the middle of the night, Song Qingshu, who was sleeping on the bed, suddenly opened his eyes. He quickly dodged to the side. A pitch-black dagger was already stabbing towards the place he had been lying on. Seeing him dodge, the opponent was not surprised. The dagger moved and slashed towards his lower abdomen. Song Qingshu cursed in his heart. This move was too vicious. If he was hit, although it was a matter of a few inches, it was related to the happiness of a man for the rest of his life. Instinctively, he stretched out his finger to touch the side of the dagger. Suddenly, he thought of something and pulled out the water moon blade beside him. It was as if a bright moon had risen in the tent. He had fought with Shui sect several times and was naturally familiar with their martial arts. In addition, he had learned the divine blade slash of the Mandarin duck blade before. In terms of blade skills, he had considerable attainments. Thus, it was not difficult for him to imitate Shui sect's martial arts. The assassin clearly did not expect him to pull out the water moon blade in an instant. Compared to the dagger, the water moon blade was much longer. If he really fought head-on, he would obviously be at a great disadvantage. Chapter 2282. In that small space, the black dagger was like a venomous snake. The angle was strange, and the attack was vicious. Even with Song Qingshu's ability, he broke out in a cold sweat. Under normal circumstances, it would not be difficult for him to avoid the opponent's attack, but now that he was a member of the Water Moon sect, it was quite troublesome to use someone else's martial arts to deal with it. As Song Qingshu dodged to the side, he tried to pull the saber back. Unfortunately, the Water Moon saber was too long. By the time he pulled it back, it would have already been pierced several times by the dagger. However, his cultivation was there after all. The saber and sword techniques did not need a real saber to use. Finding a gap, he directly used the saber handle to stab down, hitting the assassin's wrist. The assassin clearly did not expect such a move. The hand between his thumb and forefinger became numb, and he could no longer hold the dagger in his hand. However, the assassin reacted very quickly. With a flick of his toes, the dagger became a rapidly spinning hidden weapon, shooting up from below. Song Qingshu was shocked and hurriedly moved back a foot. He was very angry in his heart. This person's moves were too sinister. Every move was aimed at the lower part of the body. The assassin took this opportunity to grab the dagger in his left hand again and attack him. However, Song Qingshu had already pulled enough distance. A cold light flashed, and with a crisp clang, the dagger was struck to the side and stabbed into the ground. The blade was still trembling. Song Qingshu took the opportunity to twist the other's hand behind his back, and the water moon saber was also placed across his neck. Just as he was about to ask who he was, who knew that the assassin's body suddenly became boneless. His entire body twisted like a noodle, and he directly broke free from his control. He turned around to face him and stabbed his hands directly at his chest. There was a faint trace of blue on his fingertips, and it was obvious that there was poison on them. Song Qing-shu did not dare to test the poison on his body. In a flash, he did not have time to use the water moon saber. He directly abandoned the saber and directly grabbed the assassin's wrist. The assassin's reaction was also very fast. Although his hands were locked and could not exert force, his leg was like a venomous snake, fiercely kicking towards his lower abdomen. Song Qing-shu was really angry. This guy was too vicious. Every move he made was aimed at his lower body. Since that was the case, don't blame me for being impolite. She used her leg to block his vicious attack, then gave him a taste of his own medicine and kicked at his legs. Ah! The assassin cried out in alarm. He bent over like a cooked prawn in pain. Song Qing-shu was stunned because the voice belonged to a woman. During the intense battle just now, he didn't have the time to observe anything else. Only now did he notice that the other party's figure was indeed not like a man's. However, she was tall, and her chest must have been deliberately wrapped with a few circles of cloth, so it didn't reveal too many feminine characteristics. Pulling off the veil covering her face, a beautiful and moving face appeared in front of him. The first impression he had of her was the charm between her eyebrows. She was definitely a woman among women. However, her pained expression at this time ruined this temperament to a certain extent. Song Qing-shu asked in a deep voice, "Who are you?" The woman glared at him, and her eyes were full of hidden bitterness. The great sect really doesn't know how to have tender feelings for the fairer sex. You actually kicked me. There, Song Qing-shu frowned because at that moment, he had already felt that the other party was using the charm technique. It was somewhat similar to Dan Yuru's, but there were some differences. Her cultivation of the charm technique was obviously not as high as Dan Yuru's, but her charm towards men was comparable. It must be her natural charm that narrowed the gap between the two to a certain extent. I'm just using your own method on you. Song Qing-shu sneered. Shishir literature is the great sect from the Morong family? Since when did they also know how to give someone a taste of their own medicine? The woman's lips revealed a faint smile, obviously not worried about her situation at all. Song Qing-shu stretched out his hand and drew the water moon saber across her white and tender neck. I'll give you one last chance. Tell me your identity, or don't blame me for being merciless. The woman laughed. The great sect can't bear to kill me. After seeing my appearance just now, the great sect's killing intent unconsciously dissipated by more than half. Is that so? Song Qing-shu was stunned, and the water moon saber in his hand slashed towards her neck. I'm Haiwanshin. A cold light flashed in front of her, and in that instant, she felt the fear of death. She could even feel the skin on her neck being cut open by the blade. Haiwanshin, Song Qing-shu's heart stirred, and he remembered the conversation between Su Yiwu and Cha Bai that he had overheard. The great sect should have heard of my name. Feeling the chill of the blade on her neck, Haiwanshin was still in shock. However, Song Qing-shu's expression darkened. Nonsense. Haiwanshin is a princess. Why would she come to assassinate you in the middle of the night? I've long heard of the great sect's reputation, and I wanted to pay you a visit. Haiwanshin's eyes kept glancing at his saber, clearly worried that his hand would slip. Visit? Doesn't assassination count as a visit? Song Qing-shu sneered. The great sect's martial arts are unparalleled, so why would he care about my mediocre martial arts? I just wanted the great sect to give me some pointers in martial arts. Haiwanshin deeply apologizes for causing the great sect to misunderstand. Her voice was gentle and pleasant, and whether it was her expression or tone, every word seemed to come from the bottom of her heart. Princess is too humble. With your martial arts, you could be considered a first-class expert in the world. Song Qing-shu harumphed. Haiwanshin pursed her lips into a smile. It seems that the great sect believes in my identity. Since that's the case, can you let me go? We are so intimate now, and if others see us, it will probably cause a huge uproar. How could an experienced person like Song Qing-shu be led around by the nose by her? He directly replied, Who would see us in the middle of the night? Also, Princess has taken the initiative to throw herself into my arms. No one will believe me even if I tell them." As he spoke, he gently slid the tip of his saber across her clothes, deliberately revealing a greedy expression. "Isn't Princess afraid that I won't be able to control myself and will execute you on the spot?" Hai Wanshan shook her head. "Although Gu Yu is dead, I am still the eldest princess of the Kuo Watai family. The great sect should be someone who knows what is important. If worst comes to worst, I'll just kill you after I'm done. Who knows what happened here? Wang Fei's disappearance may become an eternal mystery, but who will really care about a Wang Fei who has lost her power?" Song Qingshu said. "What?" Hearing these words, a trace of anger flashed through Hai Wanshan's eyes, but she quickly concealed it. "Let's not fight like this. The great sect can only obtain my body, but they can't obtain my heart." Song Qingshu asked curiously. "I just want your body. Why do I need your heart?" Chapter 2283. Song Qingshu nodded and withdrew his saber. What Princess said makes sense. Being released, Hai Wanli hurriedly got up from the ground. But as soon as she stood up, she frowned and bent down. She wanted to rub her head, but she was too embarrassed to do so. She glared at Song Qingshu angrily. "Great sect is really heavy-handed." Song Qingshu replied calmly. "If Princess hadn't been attacking me from 3 different directions, I wouldn't have kicked Princess." Hai Wanli's face heated up. "I'm a woman. How can that be the same? Princess was wearing a mask just now. How could I know you were a woman? What's more, there's no distinction between men and women when dealing with assassins." Song Qingshu couldn't help but admire her seduction skills. He knew that she was acting, but every frown and smile was very lethal. It was like a young girl in love acting coquettishly to her lover. Hai Wanli clearly didn't want to continue this topic. She continued, "I really admire great sect's martial arts. It's really hard to imagine just how powerful that Fu Kalen of Goryeo is." Song Qingshu's expression turned cold. "Are you deliberately testing my patience?" Hai Wanli smiled lightly. "Great sect, please don't misunderstand. I just want to say that after what happened at Xingqing Manor, Su Yiwu probably wants to kill Great Sect." Song Qingshu snorted coldly. "This time, I save His Highness and Princess Chabi. I'll let bygones be bygones." "Ha!" Hai Wanli let out a bell-like laugh. "Great Sect is such an intelligent person. You wouldn't really believe such lies, right? Princess came here to sow discord between me and His Highness?" Song Qingshu was secretly delighted, but he didn't show it on his face. "Do I still need to sow discord between Great Sect and Su Yiwu?" Hai Wanli shook her head. "There are no outsiders here. Great Sect doesn't need to say one thing and mean another." Song Qingshu thought of what he had heard earlier and asked, "I understand. This attack was planned by Princess, right? It doesn't matter if it's me or not. Does it matter?" Ocean Wander said ambiguously. Song Qingshu said in a deep voice, "Is Wang Fei not afraid that I will immediately capture you and send you to Su Yiwu? Are you willing?" Hai Wanli walked closer to him, her eyes filled with charm. Song Qingshu exclaimed in his heart that she was a seductress. He clearly knew that she was acting, but he still couldn't resist her charm. If it wasn't for the fact that he was used to seeing stunningly beautiful women, if it was any other man, he would have completely fallen for her. Just as he was about to speak, his heart skipped a beat, and he looked outside the tent. At this moment, Huashan's voice could be heard from outside. "Is the main sect resting?" Hai Wanli was also alarmed, but there was no place to hide in the tent. She hurriedly rolled over and hid under the blanket. Song Qingshu frowned. How could he hide like this? He took the opportunity to lie down on the bed and deliberately propped his legs up, making it look like the blanket was bulging. "What's the matter, Great Elder?" Huashan held the position of the Great Elder in the Persian Ming dynasty. Usually, the foreign officials called him that. Hai Wanli clearly didn't expect him to also be on the bed. Sensing his aura, her entire body instantly stiffened. He could clearly feel that she was extremely nervous, as if she would explode if he did anything out of line. At this moment, Huashan, who was wearing a black cloak, had already lifted the curtain and walked in. "Oh, it's nothing much. I just faintly heard some movement here, so I came to see if there was anything going on." As he spoke, he looked around, and finally his gaze landed on the bulging blanket on the bed. "Oh, I was practicing just now. I might have made some noise and alarmed the Great Elder." Song Qing-shu sat up straight, but didn't get off the bed. Hai Wanli was a little surprised. The other party's hands were very well behaved and didn't take the opportunity to take advantage of her. According to the rumors, the Shueiyue Great Elder was clearly very lecherous. Sanjiu Chinese network, but no matter what, the other party's well-behaved behavior was a good thing for her in her current situation. So the Great Elder is in a good mood. "Why don't you spar with me?" Huashan looked at him quietly. Song Qing-shu frowned slightly. "It's too late now, and His Highness and the others have just experienced a tough battle. It wouldn't be good to disturb their rest." "That's true." Unexpectedly, Huashan didn't insist. "Then we'll spar with the Great Elder in the future. I won't disturb your rest today." With that, he bowed and floated away. Song Qing-shu was stunned and couldn't help but mutter to himself. Strange, he clearly knew that there was someone under the blanket, so why didn't he expose us? With Huashan's martial arts, it was impossible that he didn't notice Hai Wanli's presence. He originally thought that there would be a fight later, but who knew that the other party would retreat directly? Could it be that he was afraid of the Shueiyue Great Elder's martial arts? That couldn't be right. Although the Shueiyue Great Elder's martial arts were high, Huashan was the king of assassins. There was no reason for him to be afraid of him. What's so strange about that? Huashan also has different intentions. Hai Wanli lifted the blanket and crawled out. Her hair was a little messy because she had just hid under the blanket, but this made her look even more languid and charming. He has different intentions. Song Qing-shu thought of Hua Shan's various actions in Xingqing Prefecture and gradually understood. Hai Wanli thought that he didn't understand and explained, "Huashan has been awe-inspiring in Persia for decades, but in the end, the Persian Ming dynasty was suppressed by Su Liuwu's troops. Although he was forced to temporarily surrender, how could he really surrender? Then Princess should go to his tent." Song Qing-shu said with a faint smile. Hai Wanli shook his head. "Even if I don't go, he will rebel in the future. On the other hand, I'm not sure about the Great Elder, so I specially made a trip here. But Princess planned to kill me from the beginning." Song Qing-shu said coldly. "Of course I want to test if you have the qualifications to cooperate with me." Hai Wanli smiled sweetly and said in an almost spoiled tone, "Io, the Great Elder does not hold grudges against me. Don't take it to heart." Song Qing-shu was not moved at all. Since Princess is so active in dealing with Su Liuwu, does that mean that Guiyu was really murdered back then? Hai Wanli had been smiling sweetly, but when he heard this, his face instantly turned frosty. "Not just Su Liuwu. I won't let any of the kings of the Thunder faction go." Song Qing-shu sighed inwardly. What kind of blood feud was this? "How does Princess want me to help you?" "There is no need to trouble you for now. If there is a need in the future, then contact the Great Elder." Hai Wanli recovered his trademark smile. Song Qing-shu nodded. "Sure." Hai Wanli asked curiously, "Don't the Great Elder ask about the reward first?" Song Qing-shu pretended to look greedily at him. "Isn't the reward, Princess?" Hai Wanli stilled, anger rising in his heart, but he suppressed it with reason. "If the Great Elder satisfies me in the future, I will definitely satisfy the Great Elder." Leaving behind a meaningful sentence, Hai Wanli disappeared into the night sky. A hint of ridicule appeared on Song Qing-shu's lips. It would be strange if he believed this woman's words. Chapter 2284. In the distance, a towering mountain could be seen. The Mongols called it Mount Hong'ai, but in China, it was called Mount Yinran. This was where Do Xian defeated the northern Xiongnu. Yin Ran and Wolf Jushu were considered the highest honors for ancient generals. Thinking of the glory of the martyrs, Song Qing-shu felt a surge of excitement. Would he be able to have such a day in the future? The snow and rain on Mount Hong'ai eventually converged into a river that flowed northeast, the Oran River. Hala and Helen City were located upstream of the Oran River. He noticed that this area was densely forested and the vegetation was lush. No wonder Mongolia built their capital here. When he arrived at Helen City, Song Qingshu realized that he had been a frog at the bottom of a well. He had thought that Helen City would be a gathering place for a large number of yurts. He did not expect that it was not much different from the big cities in the Central Plains. Not only were there Mongols on the streets, but there were also Semu people from Central Asia, Persian merchants, blonde people from Eastern Europe, and even many Han people. Before, Song Qingshu had been worried that a Han person like him would be too eye-catching. But looking at the situation, it was like a drop of water merging into the ocean. Who would notice him? Song Qingshu, however, could not relax. After all, this showed how powerful the Mongols were. They had conquered so many countries, and, at the same time, they were able to use them for their own purposes. In terms of fully integrating the various powers, none of the countries of the Central Plains could compare to the Mongols. Even now, he still remembered how the Southern Song dynasty treated the rebel armies in the north. On one side, there were clear rewards and punishments, and on the other, there were layers upon layers of embezzlement. It was no wonder that so many rebel armies in the Central Plains were eventually forced to join the Mongols. Helen City was heavily guarded, but with Princess Chabi and Zulwu present, there was no difficulty in entering the city. Zulwu had originally planned to see Temujin, but he found out that the Khan was out hunting and would only return tomorrow. He could only rest in the palace for a day and go to the palace the next day. Song Qingshu secretly let out a sigh of relief. At the moment, he was completely clueless about the intelligence on this side. If he went to see Temujin directly, there was no guarantee that he wouldn't slip up. Another night to understand the situation was a good thing. Io, isn't this my brilliant and mighty sixth brother? How'd he end up in such a miserable state? At this time, a group of people approached them on horseback. The young master in the lead seemed to be a prince or something. His appearance was somewhat similar to Su Lai Wu, but he was even more arrogant and despotic. People make mistakes, and horses stumble. There is no need for seventh brother to worry, Su Lai Wu said calmly. Song Qingshu was taken aback. So this was Brother Alabuj. Although this was the first time they had met, they had quite a few dealings. In the early days, Songjie of the Tantric Buddhism sect, Blood Knife Ancestor, and even the island master of the Divine Dragon Island seemed to be his subordinates. Moreover, his territory was adjacent to the Manchurian Qing. Both sides had fought dozens of times. Later on, because of repeated defeats, Song Qingshu finally exchanged territory with the Ryong Palace. Dan Yuru and the others, whom he met in Xingqing Prefecture a few days ago, seemed to have joined him as well. When he thought of this, he sized up Brother Alabuj, but he did not see Dan Yuru. However, the people beside him clearly had great qi, and their breathing patterns were rather familiar. They should be elites from Enweed faction. At that moment, Brother Alabuj mocked him. Aren't you mainly in the countries in West region? Why are you picking up the elegant words of the Han? It's no wonder why you've become as weak and useless as the Han. In the past, the Great Khan had also experienced the devastating defeat of the 13 Wings faction. He had also shared his troubles with 19 of his brothers at Banjuni River. In the end, he still built a vast empire that no one had ever seen before. That's why a momentary loss is nothing. Su Lai Wu puffed out his chest. Even though he was still wrapped in bandages, his aura did not lose to Brother Alabuj at all. Brother Alabuj flew into a rage. Enough! Who do you think you are? How dare you compare yourself to the Great Khan? The guard beside Su Lai Wu glared at him. They drew their weapons and were about to fight. Brother Alabuj's guards did not take even half a step back. They pressed forward as well, and both sides were about to fight. By the side, Consort Chabi came out to stop them. Enough, enough. We're all brothers. Let's not fight. We don't want to hurt our friendship. The elites by Su Lai Wu's side had died during their trip to Western Xia. If they really fought, they would definitely be at a disadvantage. Chinese. Brother Ollie couldn't help laughing when he saw her. He said in a strange tone, "It turns out to be sister-in-law. Fourth brother is really generous. He even sent his wife to escort his brother." Tut tut. Uncle and sister-in-law get along with each other day and night. No wonder sixth brother always helps fourth brother. It turns out that sister-in-law has contributed a lot. Consort Chabi was instantly so angry that her face turned red. Brother Alabuge, watch your mouth. Did I say anything? Brother Alabuge shrugged. I'm just speaking the truth. Sister-in-law, don't think too much about it. Ha ha ha. He left behind a string of arrogant laughter. At the side, Song Qingshu was amused. He did not think that these Mongolian princes would be so arrogant and despotic. This was exactly what he wanted. He could not wait for these people to fight fiercely. Looking at Brother Alabuge's departing figure, Su Lai Wu's expression darkened. Killing intent flashed in his eyes. Not far away, the corners of the mouth of the old man in the mountain also rose slightly. It was obvious that he was happy to see what was happening. Fourth sister-in-law, don't take that bastard's words to heart. Su Lai Wu collected his emotions and hurriedly apologized to Chabi. Consort Chabi's face was also frosty. Brother Alabuge is becoming more and more outrageous. Su Lai Wu sneered. Fourth brother, and I will teach him a lesson sooner or later. After this storm, Consort Chabi was not in the mood to stay any longer. After saying a few words to Su Lai Wu, she hurriedly returned to her own residence. It was obvious that Brother Alabuge's words had caused a certain amount of damage to her. Because Su Lai Wu was injured, he also returned to his residence to rest. Song Qingshu found an opportunity to sneak out of the palace of the 6th Marquis. He wanted to find the whereabouts of Zhao Min. The Ryong Palace was very famous in Mongolia. As the #1 beauty of Mongolia, Princess Zhao Min was the object of admiration for many young men. A little investigation was all it took to find out where she was. She brought her nephew to Helen, and after complaining to Temujin, she was placed in a house near the imperial city. It was said that she was recuperating, but in reality, she was placed under house arrest. Many Mongolians sighed at the mention of her story. It was obvious that the Prince of Ruyong's misfortune was pitiful. Coupled with the fact that Zhao Min was famous for her beauty, she gained the favor of many passers-by. Along the way, he found a courtyard where Zhao Min was placed under house arrest. Because there were guards at the door, Song Qingshu did not enter from the front door. Instead, he quietly snuck in. Although the guards in the courtyard were not as heavily guarded as those in the imperial palace, they were still quite well guarded. It seemed that Temujin still valued this place. Because he often climbed over walls to enter courtyards, Song Qingshu could easily guess the layout of the courtyard. He went all the way to the place where Zhao Min was most likely to be. Through the window, he could faintly see a young girl dressed in a light yellow silk gown. Her skin was fair and her face was radiant. However, compared to usual, there was a hint of worry on her face. Just as Song Qingshu was about to step forward, he suddenly stopped. He had sensed that there was someone else in the room. Chapter 2285. Song Qingshu hastily ducked to the side and peeked in through the crack of the window. He saw a Mongolian gentleman dressed in luxurious clothing fawning over Zhao Min, judging from his attire. He was not a prince, but the number of people accompanying him and the way he spoke were not inferior to the other princes. I already have someone I like, so I can only disappoint Brother Chen's good intentions, Zhao Min said apologetically. Song Qingshu, who was outside the window, felt as if he had eaten the fruit of life, and there was no part of his body that did not feel comfortable. The gentleman sneered and said, "Are you talking about the cult master of the Ming dynasty, Zhang Wuji, or the Golden Snake King, Song Qingshu? No matter who they are, they weren't by your side when you needed help the most. How can a man be considered a man if he can't even protect his own woman?" Zhao Min snorted softly. All men have their own careers. If they revolve around women all the time, how can they have any future? The gentleman held his breath, as if he felt that she was talking about him. But when he saw her beautiful face, he could not get angry at all. He's usually like this, but this time, when the Ruyong mansion is facing a great calamity, he didn't come to help you. What's the use of having someone he likes? A great calamity? Zhao Min said lightly. Although my father was assassinated, the great Khan entertained us with good food and drinks. At the same time, he raised the titles and rewards of us brother and sister. He also promised that he would catch the murderer. What kind of disaster is that? A hint of anger flashed across the gentleman's face. There are no outsiders here. Min, why do you have to pretend to be ignorant? Everyone knows the great Khan's attitude towards the Ruyang mansion. Before he could finish, he was interrupted by Zhao Min. Are you saying that the person who assassinated my father was sent by the great Khan? The gentleman's expression changed instantly. I didn't say that. I didn't mean that. I just feel that the situation in the Ruyang mansion is a little unstable. If you and I are connected by marriage with the status of our family, we can naturally protect the Ruyang mansion. Zhao Min said coldly. The Ruyang mansion doesn't need to rely on others. When Prince Ruyang was still alive, your prince's mansion was indeed the most powerful family in all of Mongolia. The noble young master did not give up. But now, the situation has changed. Min, you have always been quick-witted. How can you not understand all of this? Zhao Min shook her head. Nachun, I advise you to go back and discuss it with your father and grandfather. They probably don't want to get involved in this. The gentleman immediately became excited. Then the gentleman said, Nachun, Prince Min Chun, and Na Min, I advise you. Zhao Min obviously didn't want to listen to him. She gently covered her forehead and said, I'm tired. I want to rest. He said, Chun, and said, and Min and said, of Min and Min was I. Min, of Chun said. Ching Chun said, Min, rest well. I'll go back and convince my father and the others. Then you won't have to worry. After the young master left, Zhao Min came to the window and looked towards the south. Suddenly, she let out a long sigh. Beauty, why are you sighing? Could it be that you're thinking of your lover? Song Qing Shu suddenly became mischievous and deliberately changed his voice. Who is it? Zhao Min turned around and saw a man dressed like a Dong-ing samurai in the room. Are you from the Shuei clan? Zhao Min had a good memory. She had studied all the important people around Temujin. She quickly thought of someone. Princess, you are indeed smart. Song Qing Shu was about to walk toward her, but she stopped him. What are you doing here? If you come any closer, I'll call for help. I was afraid that you would be lonely, so I came to keep you company. Song Qing Shu appeared beside her in a flash. Fat cat. Zhao Min was shocked. She quickly attacked him. Her kung fu was not weak, and with Song Qing Shu's guidance, she could be considered a master in the martial world. But as soon as she attacked, her body went numb and she fell into his arms. Come, Zhao Min called out. However, just as he opened his mouth, his mute acupoint was sealed. Seeing the panic on her face, a trace of regret flashed through Song Qing Shu's heart. He hurriedly recovered his original voice and said, Min, it's me. Zhao Min's heart was in her throat. When she saw that it was him, she was pleasantly surprised. Is it really you? I came late, Song Qing Shu said apologetically. You've been worried for so long. Zhao Min finally reacted. She clenched her fists. It's fine that you came late, but you scared me on purpose. Song Qing Shu hugged her tightly in his arms and said with an embarrassed expression, It's just that I don't feel good seeing so many wild bees and butterflies around you. The corner of Zhao Min's mouth turned up. Who asked me to be so good-looking? There are many people in Mongolia who like me. Song Qing Shu pinched her in a punitive manner. Unfortunately, in the end, I still beat you to it. Zhao Min understood what he was talking about. She blushed. Look at how proud you are. After a while, Song Qing Shu comforted her. What happened to your father? Zhao Min's expression turned cold. Hatred flashed in her eyes. In the end, it was because Temujin was afraid that the power of the Ruyang Palace was growing. Coupled with the incitement of some despicable people, a few months ago, the royal court sent envoys to investigate the taxes of the counties under the jurisdiction of the Ruyang Palace. They took the opportunity to frame some of the trusted officials of the Ruyang Palace and put them in prison. In order to save these people and at the same time improve his relationship with the Khan, my father decided to go to Helen personally to plead for mercy. Who would have thought that he would be assassinated on the way? Looks like it was Temujin who sent people to do it, Song Qingshu said in a low voice. Of course I know, Zhao Min said. My father has many powerful warriors under his command. Aside from the Khan himself, no one in Mongolia would dare to touch my father. So you took the initiative to bring your nephew to Helen as a hostage in order to temporarily protect the Ruyang Palace? Song Qingshu asked. Zhao Min nodded. I had no choice. The Ruyang Palace has never thought of rebelling, so we weren't prepared for this. When my father was assassinated, the armies of Kublai, Ali Buj, and the other kings were subtly suppressing the Ruyang Palace. We didn't have enough time to mobilize our troops, so I immediately brought people to Helen and pretended that I didn't know anything. I begged Temujin to make a decision. Because of the hostages and the fact that I made too much noise, Temujin really couldn't make a move on the Ruyang Palace. Song Qingshu sighed. You really are smart to be able to protect the Ruyang Palace in such a precarious situation. Zhao Min smiled sadly. If I was really smart, my father wouldn't have died. Song Qingshu gently patted her shoulder and comforted her. Don't worry. When I come, I'll definitely get you and your nephew out of here safely. Unexpectedly, Zhao Min shook her head. I don't want to leave Helen right now. I still want to stay here and get my revenge. Song Qingshu was surprised, but he didn't try to persuade her otherwise. Instead, he said, Fine, I'll go with you to get revenge for my father-in-law. Who's your father-in-law? Zhao Min spat, and a hint of embarrassment flashed across her face. After all, the two of them had only made a promise without her father's permission. Chapter 2286. Song Qingshu did not directly answer her question. Instead, he smiled and said, With your intelligence, since you have decided to stay in Helen City for revenge, I believe you already have a plan in mind. Zhao Min shook her head. Although I have a rough plan, the difference in strength between the two sides is too great. I'm afraid that it is not something that can be made up for with schemes alone. But now that you are here, I am even more confident. Song Qingshu hugged her soft body and said, Let me guess, is your plan to use the grudge between the kings of the Kuo clan and the Thor clan? It seems that there's also the dispute between Kublai and Ali Buj. Zhao Min's eyes lit up. How did you know? She asked in surprise. I was worried that a Han person like me would be too conspicuous in Helen City, so I disguised myself as a member of the Shuiwei clan and snuck into Su Liuwu's side. He roughly explained what had happened on this trip and the conflict between Ali Buj and Su Liuwu after entering the city. Zhao Min immediately became excited. I didn't expect the conflict between the Kuo clan and the Thor clan to have reached this level. Although I felt that there was definitely a problem between them before, they were still friendly on the surface. I didn't expect that Lost would personally make a move in secret. Song Qingshu nodded. To be honest, I have been suppressed by the power of the Mongols for a long time. But after understanding all this, I suddenly feel a lot more confident. Zhao Min rolled her eyes at him. If I had heard that you were planning to deal with the Mongols before, I might have been hesitant about whether to help you or help my own country. But now that Temujin has treated the Ruyang household like this, don't blame us for returning a tooth for a tooth. Song Qingshu felt that he was much luckier than Zhang Wuji. Back then, he had to choose between his country and his beauty, and Zhao Min also had to choose between her country and her love. But now, these obstacles no longer existed. Right? You just said that you will go with Su Liuwu to see Temujin tomorrow morning? Zhao Min asked. Song Qingshu nodded. Not bad. A look of concern appeared on Zhao Min's face. Although your kung fu is high, you are now in the city of Helen. Temujin has too many top-notch experts by his side, and he himself has trained in unfathomable magic. Those people are all very shrewd. If you give yourself away, I'm afraid your life will be in danger. Song Qingshu frowned. Although he was proud of his martial arts, he was not arrogant enough to look down on all the experts in the world. Zhao Min stood up from his arms and ran to a small drawer to the side to take out a book. The biggest problem right now is that you are not familiar with the people around Temujin. It is very likely that your cover will be blown tomorrow. Fortunately, I have been studying revenge recently and have compiled some information. You need to memorize it tonight so that you won't be exposed when you enter the palace tomorrow. Song Qingshu's eyes lit up. This was indeed a problem he was worried about. The previous times he had disguised himself as someone else, he had at least made some preparations beforehand. This time, he had acted in haste and knew nothing about the situation in Mongolia. Zhao Min took his hand and sat down at the table. At the same time, she flipped open the book. There was a portrait of a person on it, as well as a brief introduction. After you enter the palace tomorrow, the first person to Temujin's left is an old man named Menrik. His position is very high, and he could be said to be the head of all the officials. He was an important official who entrusted Temujin's father to him. His father's generation all died for the Temujin family. If not for him, Temujin would have died when he was still young and weak. Because of his transmigration, Song Qingshu's soul was much stronger than the average person's, and his memory was even stronger. He carefully observed the person in the book and silently memorized all the information. The first person to Temujin's right is the emperor's uncle, the Duke of Hushi. According to Chun, he is the elder brother of Temujin's first empress, Borte, and the leader of the Hongjiara tribe. Zhao Min paused for a moment before explaining, "You may not know the status of the Hongjiara tribe in Mongolia. The Hongjiara tribe has always been famous for their beautiful women. Temujin's mother and the first empress were both from the Hongjiara tribe. In the early years, they fought together with Temujin, so Temujin once gave the order that the Hongjiara tribe would give birth to daughters as empresses and sons as princesses." Song Qingshu was shocked. "This family has such glory?" Zhao Min nodded. "That's right. The young man who was in my room just now is called Na Chun, the second son of the emperor's uncle. That's why he was so arrogant about wanting to protect me." Song Qingshu raised his eyebrows. "That Na Chun could have married a princess, but for you, he only married a princess. Looks like he's really infatuated." Zhao Min was a little annoyed. "How can you still make fun of me at a time like this? Besides, what infatuation is he talking about? It's all because I'm prettier than those princesses." Song Qingshu pulled her back into his embrace. "My Min is the #1 beauty in Mongolia. Which woman can compare to you?" Zhao Min blushed. "You can't say that. I only got this title because I'm still young and unmarried. Actually, Temujin's little empress, Guiyo's consort Hai Wanli, Monk's consort Yesuer, and Kublai's consort Chabi, they're all famous beauties in the desert. Oh right, Yesuer and Chabi's consort are both from the Hongjiara family. Chabi is the sister of that Na Chun, and Yesuer is the daughter of another branch of their family. In history, Yesu was actually one generation younger than Chabi, so Chabi should be Yesuer's aunt. However, two people of the same generation were married to two brothers. It could only be said that the Mongolians didn't care much about seniority. Song Qingshu nodded to himself. As expected, they gave birth to a daughter to be their empress. Whether it was Monk or Kublai, they both had high hopes of ascending the throne in the future, so their wives would naturally become empresses. Of course, in this world, Monk died in an accident, so he no longer had the chance to become a Khan. The women of the Hongjiara family are famous for their fair skin and beautiful features. You should have met Chabi. What do you think of her? Zhao Min looked at him with a hint of ridicule. Song Qingshu answered without thinking. She is indeed fair and beautiful, a rare beauty. It's no wonder that Ali Buj would say that there's something going on between her and Zulwa's uncle and sister-in-law. Song Qingshu's face turned red when he recalled the soft touch on his fingers. He noticed that Zhao Min was staring at him, so he quickly changed the topic. Ahem, it's just that your temper is a little bad. You're far worse than my Min. Zhao Min wrinkled her nose, but she didn't pursue the matter. She continued to read. The next seats are the four remonstrants, Zhuahulan, Kwashosi, Daigai, and Wusan. Song Qingshu frowned. You Mongolian names are really hard to pronounce. They sound bad and hard to remember. Zhao Min immediately objected. Then my real name is actually Min Timur. Isn't that also hard to pronounce? Song Qingshu hurriedly smiled. Of course not. Your name is the best. Zhao Min snorted and pointed at one of them. The other three are fine, but you have to be extra careful of this white-robed old man, Wusun. He has a very high prestige among the Mongolian tribes. It's said that he has the power to communicate with the gods. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.